All right, welcome back to the IMNerd podcast, guys. I'm your host, Freeway, and I'm here with my great co-host, my man, Ken Chan.
Why you gotta do that? Why you gotta try to big me up like I didn't just tell you I'm pissed off? Huh? Why you gotta do that?
Because you've been getting scraped on Master Duel, and I want you to tell the people about your fucking experience. Tell them how your Dragon Maid shenanigans have not been going your way.
I've been going, so I've won like 90% of my games, cleaning up house. And then today I logged on, and it didn't.
And they weren't having it. They were not having it today.
Better cards to my deck and started losing. I don't know what happened. All right.
Name some of the better cards. I am not that familiar with current Yu-Gi-Oh! Or like whatever Master Duel format is, but I probably do know some of them.
I added Infinite Impermanence and Called by the Grave and started losing. Both of those. I was like, what happened? How did I start losing? Here's what's pissing me off though. First of all, I know the timer is long. It's not long enough. I don't got time to read. If I want to read all these fucking cards, I've lost a timeout like 4 times because I'm trying I'm trying to read the cards because everybody plays a different deck, and I'm trying to read the fucking cards because I want to negate like the key. I want to make sure I'm negating the right card.
Yeah, that's important.
And then I'm reading, and then by the time there's been situations where like I'm set up to win, I feel like I negated the right cards, but then I just lose the timeout because like I spent time reading cards. And it's so infuriating.
I've never thought about it, but I do complain about the amount of text on Yu-Gi-Oh cards nowadays is absurd, and how small it is.
It's insane.
Every card reads like 04,000 odds restrict. Like they're all that long with that amount of text. And it's kind of absurd because in Master Duel, I didn't consider the fact that you have a timer. I've never played Master Duel, so just full, disclosure there. But I did hear there's a timer. It kind of works like chess or something. At the start of your turn, you get time back and all this other stuff. Yeah. I don't know all the mechanics of it. Not really important. The idea is that if you spend time reading cards, it takes away time from your turn, I guess is what you're saying or something.
Yeah, because I'm reading the card and like think about it, right? Obviously, everybody knows this. If you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In a YCS and your opponent picks up and reads your card, you're like, I won. Because they don't know. Because if you're reading the card, then you don't really have time. You're not also thinking about your play and all this other stuff.
Yeah. The only interactions with every individual card that you have to read is really bad to try to learn it on the fly.
Yeah. So, obviously I'm learning fucking all Eldritch and Drytron and all these shitty ass decks on the fly. And I'm reading them, and like, even if you play them more than once, you gotta like, all right, which one was this one? And you gotta read it again. And then you just like run out of time, and it's so infuriating. There's been like 2 or 3 games at least that I lost in time because I was reading cards and trying to negate the correct card, and goddamn, that's infuriating.
Yeah, but what else have you been losing to? So you've added Impermanence, you've added Called by the Grave, and then you're playing Dragon Maids, right? Was I right on that?
Yeah, I'm playing Dragon Maids. I started making. They're fun as shit. I started making, although I don't have all the cards for it yet, and I probably won't have it for a bit. I started making dinosaurs.
Okay.
Because I like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. He's cool.
That monster is fucking insane.
He's cool as shit.
That guy is so insane.
I mean, today I only lost to Eldritch and Drytron. I was playing, and I lost the Trap Tricks because I was running out of time. I needed to record the podcast, and I didn't feel like reading new cards that I never read before, and I just surrendered. I was like, on turn 1, they summoned a monster I never saw before, and I was like, I don't got time for this, and I just quit. I was like, I don't got time to learn another deck. I only got 5 minutes before I record the podcast. I'm out of here.
Well, I'm glad you take your podcast duties, seriously. But, that's nice of you.
But yeah, I've beaten Eldritch and Drytron a good couple times, but today wasn't a good day. I lost to them. And
apparently I've heard from you were here. Shu Ping was on our podcast, and he said that Drytron is the best deck on Master Duel. So
Drytron's insane. Right now, the most played deck, at least according to the statistics, is Tri Brigade. I think it's Zoo Tri Brigade.
So that deck is way easier to play with a lower ceiling.
Yeah.
So like it's easy for like I could pick up a Tri Brigade deck today and play Master Duel, and I can get myself to Plat 1 or whatever it is, like by playing it, for however many hours. That deck is very simple, but it's very good. Like what it does, that Ominous Omen card and Revolt, those cards. Do you know what those are?
Not yet. No, I don't remember.
They're very broken. Ominous Omen is just their Link 4 monster that when he comes out, he banishes a card on the field and it does not target. So it's Caius that doesn't target. Jesus. And it's every time a beast warrior, or winged beast monster is summoned. So he doesn't just do it when he comes out. because he is a one of those three types. But he
Yeah,
also
yeah.
does it every time you or your opponent, I believe, summon
Summons
one of
them.
those types.
That's
So
crazy.
he's really broken. And then he also does something where like he gets revolt, or some part of the combo ends up getting you revolt, and revolt is a trap card that summons him again. So it's like this
Man.
little, yeah, it's nonsense.
Yeah. Well, Drytron's annoying. I mean, Herald has always been a corny deck. And still corny. Fuck Herald. And, yeah, they summoned some monster on me to change the heart at my monster forever. And I was like, what is
Natasha?
that?
Was it Natasha?
I don't remember her name.
Cyber Angel Natasha, I think it is.
I think that was. I remember Cyber Angel. Bitch came out, did some shit, and then all of a sudden Crystal Wing was on their field. And I was like, wait a minute. So what on?
You're slowly realizing that's probably the actual best deck, like she said, but
like,
it's not as popular because it's harder to play.
What? Crystal Wing? What are you doing? And then I was like, all right, whatever. I played out the rest of my turn, and then I was like, it'll come back to me, right? And it didn't come back to me. It didn't return.
But so what makes you like the Dragon Maid deck? Before we get into our actual topic this episode, let's just end this with here. Like, what makes you like Dragon Maids?
I mean, I'm a fucking degenerate. That's why I like the anime. I'm a degenerate. That's all. They're fucking sexy ass dragon maids. That's it. But also, honestly, there's a ton of archetypes with cute girls on it, right? Sky Strikers. Even though Sky Striker, I realize it's just one girl, with a bunch of different armors on. But
which is cool as shit.
It is cool. But I actually
they say Rey is Bae.
Yeah, I actually think dragon maids are really fun, and their playstyle is really cool. They make Herotic Seal of Heavenly Spheres or whatever the fuck his name is. And that card is fucked up. And then he can, pop himself to bounce a card and then summon a Dragon Maid from your deck. And then you summon Nurse, and then Nurse summons another Dragon Maid. And then in the battle phase, you fucking transform into the big dragons. So, they're really strong. I think Yugioh is a crazy boss monster. She negates the activation of any card just because she's 3,500 attack. And right now,
that card's pretty nice.
I'm playing.
Negates are good.
I'm playing a Dragoonity variant where it has a Dragoonity engine. And on turn 1, it summons Crystal Wing, Heavenly Sphere, and Yugioh. And
sheesh.
And if you ask me, that's a pretty strong board. And whenever I know what I'm playing against, I do okay. But if I got to read all your cards, I get fucked.
Yeah. All right. Well, today's episode is actually going to be on Edison format, which that will just be the title of the episode, so you guys already know that. But before we get into that, I actually want to give a shout out to our patrons over at Patreon at the beginning of this episode.
Before you give a shout out to the patrons over on Patreon, I want to say, everybody listening, I know you may or may not be confused, but this isn't a Yu-Gi-Oh podcast, all right? I know we've done a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh episodes.
I think our last episode was
continue to do so,
right?
But I just wanted to clear that up.
Look, our last episode was Nintendo Direct, and the one before that was the 50th episode special, where we talked about 50 actual different things that are all nerd related. And then we also did the episode on Power Rangers before that. So it's been a while.
I was streaming yesterday, and somebody was watching my stream, and I could tell they knew a lot about Yu-Gi-Oh! And they were telling me about tournaments and stuff. So I did the big shill. I was like, hey, by the way, I don't know if you ever heard of this guy named Fraser Smith, but he's one of YCS. He's done like 20 tops. And I do a podcast with him. And then I gave him the IMNerd link. I was like, you should go check it out. And then he was like, oh, shit, I'm going to go check that out.
Well, there you go. That's what we're supposed to do. Promote by any means necessary. And I hope that you guys like and share and all that stuff too. But as far as our patrons over at Patreon, so you can find us on Patreon at IMNerd Podcast. We have 4 different tiers. And our highest tier is actually one spot. Only one person can occupy. It's $100. It's a very prestigious spot, and someone just took it today, which is absurd. That spot is really broken. What it can do, it allows you to literally be a guest on the podcast once a month, as long as you're in it. So we have a new guy who has entered that spot, and really appreciate that. But we also have, our main tiers are much, 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 much cheaper than that. But because that tier has such an insane ability, we want to make it something that, is worth, you feel like you really got something. So, all right. Well, anyways, we have Connie, Austin, Leon, Quest, Garen, Xavier, Hylian, TCG Automotive, Silver Chronic, Tyree Tinsley, Dimitri Barnes, Alexander Brissett, Vinny Casello, Dominique Roberts, Game Freak Yoshi, Alex Flamer, Michael, Gabe Marini, Andre Reynolds, CJ, Dub K Dad 1, Saul at Dabber's Gaming Cafe, Dan Vrabel, Dennis Milburn, Joseph Marcello, Scott Page, and the newest and at the highest tier, the king of all kings, the holiest of holies, we have Ezuka or Izuka. I'm not sure how you say it, Ezuka, but
I always call him Izuka. I've known him for a while now.
Yeah.
Me and him were hanging out like 2 or 3 days ago. I was playing Master Duel, and he was like, we were talking about old school Yugioh and how like he just kind of collects the cards. He never really got into playing the game. He just like would collect some of the cards.
Yeah.
And we were just chatting, and I told him about the podcast and like just talking about it, not really like even chilling it, just talking about our lives. And then like a day later, Fraser messages me and he's like, "Yo," and he shows me our Patreon, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And then I messaged Izuka right away. I was like, "Yo, what the."
Yeah, it was kind of nice. I didn't expect that. I mean, we just made that tier last month, I think. So it's a pretty new tier, and I didn't expect anybody to take it so early. But that's pretty cool. And he also said, so he's not going to be subscribed at the $100 tier the entire year or anything like that. Like he's going to do it this month, and then he's going to like back off of it. And it gives someone else a chance if they want to buy it, because it's limited to one person. So like we can't have 5 of those where 5 people can just jump on the podcast at any time. Like that would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's limited to one spot. So it's one of those things where like you buy it, you have it for a month, you use it, and then you can just like jump off of it and that type of thing. You can even bank it too. And I kind of should update the description, but like, so if let's say he bought it this month in February, but like he doesn't want to use it, use his ability to come on the podcast, he can just use it at some other time. Like we're not gonna.
Yeah, he does it, and he's like, by the way, like work is work, and I can't do it till 2 months from now. It's like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah, like we're human beings, so we understand things happen. We've had some crazy audio shit happen lately that doesn't normally happen to us, where we've missed an episode literally because of having to re-record it. As you guys know, with our 50th episode, our longest episode, mind you, that took us 3 hours to record and then another 3 hours to record again. So, but I love doing this, and honestly, it doesn't even feel like work. It's really fun, especially once you get started. Like leading up to it, it's like, okay, we have to figure out something to talk about.
Feels like work after you get our ass kicked for an hour.
Yeah, but as soon as we start talking, it's great. All right, so the actual topic, Edison format, which we mentioned this in our 50th podcast episode special, but we didn't really go into too much detail. We just kind of gave a little quick blurb on it. It has completely consumed my life. I forget how intoxicating Yu-Gi-Oh can be because I haven't been playing for 5 years, and
bad.
Yeah,
it's not good.
But Yu-Gi-Oh is just so fucking good, and it found a way to get me back, and that's through Edison format, old school Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm a boomer. I've lived through this format. I played in this format. This format is in the same year that I actually won. It's the first event of the year, Edison format. It's a very unique format. There's like literally 15 different decks, if not more. I guess I'll say there's probably like 10 competitive decks, and then there's another 10 decks that you can play that they can be good sometimes, but most likely they are just going to like burn out to the top 10 best decks of the format. But there's so many decks to choose from, and people love that diversity. And they also love the fact that the cards aren't outrageously powerful to the point where turn 1, you just win the game because, you summon Stratos, and that just went into a 10-minute turn that ended with 3 Omni Negates and a trap that you searched and like, 4 in hand or whatever people are doing nowadays. Like here, I know Hero Lives and current Yu-Gi-Oh can just do the most, and that card's not legal in 2010 Edison format yet. So there's not really a lot of crazy things. Like I think the best card in the format is probably Future Fusion and Rescue Cat. Those are like the two, like off the top of my head. If I just had to say, I think Future Fusion is number 1, right? Like it's a spell, it's broken, it does a lot. So, and I think like Rescue Cat is probably the best, normal summon monster outside of that. But it's at 1, so it's kind of like both of them are at 1. But what I found is this really great resource. So for people who are wondering how to get into Edison format, I think the best resource out there is edisonformat.com. Yes, you heard me correctly. edisonformat.com. Whoever put this website together, you're amazing. Sorry, I don't actually know like who it is or what it, who created it, but whatever team is behind putting this together did a fucking great job with this, because it has so much detail, so you can literally learn about the format, like what is Edison format, why play Edison format, what deck to play. They have all these categories. They have a tab for decks, which has a ton of different decks, and you can click on the decks. This is the coolest shit. You can click on the deck, the picture of it, and it will give you a download link to Dueling Book, which will auto import it to Dueling Book for you. So you don't have to manually type in all of this nonsense into Dueling Book if you want to play these decks. So that's one of the best things about it. Is just that resource alone makes this so much more digestible, because honestly, at first, before I realized that this was a thing, I was manually typing in all my deck lists, which takes a while. And just being able to click a picture and download it is such a futuristic thing that should be available, right? Like, that's just a very normal thing to have. So I'm just glad that that's real. It's great. It's really great. Just to go over some of the decks that are on this website, I'm just going to read through them. They're in alphabetical order. If you click on decks on edisonformat.com and you go to categories, if you're on desktop, it'll be on the right. But if you're on your phone, you'll have to scroll down a bit past a couple decks and you'll see a whole list of decks. So they have Black Wings, Burn, Diva Hero, Dragons, Fairies, Fish, Flamvel, Frogs, Gadgets, Gladiator Beasts, Heroes, Historic decks, Lightsworn, Machina, Monarchs, Quick Draw Warrior, Rogue, Six Samurai, the decks that actually did well at SJC Edison, so the actual top 32 from that, Stun, Synchro Cat, Twilight, Vayu Turbo, Volcanics, X-Sabers, and Zombies. There's also a ton of archives of all different types of stuff, but just that number of categories for decks, that's not even the decks that are actually in each individual category. Like when you click on Machina, for example, you get decks that are like Gear Town, but you also just get regular Machina gadget decks. You get all these different things. So there's so much to choose from. And I think that is like amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of really fun decks. We've been having fun. You and me, a couple days ago, maybe it was a week ago at this point, but we had like that one night where we were just like clicking random decks, downloading them, and then playing.
We go through them so quick. It's fun. It's really fun. We found out that they're trash or that they're actually kind of nice. They have promise.
Listen, if you're listening to this and you're like, dude, I remember Six Samurai. I like them. Listen, this isn't the point. They're not good. Look, all right? Six Samurai are not. I was like, all right, yeah, let me try Six Samurai. And then I downloaded the deck and then I played it. And then I was like, okay, wait, this deck doesn't do anything in 2010. Like, at least not at this time period. Like, it just doesn't have what it needs yet. It doesn't have, what's his name, Xian?
Yeah, that's the big thing. It doesn't have its synchro, which changes the game for them. It doesn't have the red and blue package either.
Yeah,
that clears monsters for the deck. And I think that the problem you had when we played was that big monsters are really hard for that deck to clear.
Yeah, the only way, off the top of my head, I mean, there might be another way, but in general, the only way it can really clear big monsters is if it has, like, Grandmaster and Zanji, and then you have to crash Zanji to kill it, like...
Yeah, it's not the most ideal situation. So, but in all honesty, there's so many good decks. So I think the deck that's performing the best is the Diva Hero deck. So this website, edisonformat.com, also has tournaments that they kind of host, and I think the guy's name is like Ed and Edison or something like that. He has a YouTube page, E3 Yugioh. So Ed and Edison, he posts a lot of content all the time. I actually reached out to him today to see if he could come on his podcast and record with us, but he wasn't available. But he's having another huge tournament on March 26th, and he's going to come on a podcast before March 26th to talk about Edison format, talk about some things that are going on. He hosted a couple weeks ago, and I talk about this all the time now. He hosted an online Edison format tournament, and the tournament got 144 players, which is the most players of any Edison format tournament since the actual Shonen Jump Championship in 2010. So 12 years later, the biggest ever Edison tournament was held online a couple weeks ago by this guy, and I guess like the people running this website. I'm not sure exactly the structure of how all things work, but it's really cool that that's a thing. And I actually watched the tournament live. Like I was, watching it on Twitch, or maybe it was YouTube, wherever it was. I was watching the tournament, and it was actually really fun to just like watch what people do, what the commentators think someone is going to do, and then seeing what happens when they do something different, how people play out of stuff, how people draw out of stuff. That was the rekindling for me. Like that's what slowly made me want to play Yu-Gi-Oh again. Watching that and being like, I could totally do this. Like I could do slow ass Yu-Gi-Oh again.
That's what ruined our lives. So now Frazier's back in the Yu-Gi-Oh, which it made me creep into doing Edison format, and now I'm ruining my life on Master Duel.
It happens.
This website's cool though. I'm looking at it. It has like pretty cool statistics for. This one has the 1K member celebration tournament And so it has like data from that tournament and like the top 25 most played main deck cards. And at the top of that list is Caius, the Shadow Monarch. And second, I don't know, I guess this is kind of surprising to me, but maybe not. But the second most played card in that tournament was Bottomless Strap Hole. And I don't know why, like, Bottomless Strap Hole was obviously played back then, but I'm kind of shocked that it's the second most played card.
So here, I'll say this. No surprise on Caius, right? Me and you both agree.
Surprise on Caius.
Caius is fucking outrageous in this format.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I actually remember that. Like, when I think about Edison format, I don't know if I knew in 2010 how outrageous Caius was. So full disclosure here, this is kind of a random thing. I'm going a little aside. But at the actual Shonen Jump Championship Edison, when I was a nobody, I had no tops at the time. I topped a bunch of regionals in the Philly area, like Delaware, Philly, Jersey, that type of thing. But I never topped a Shonen Jump Championship or YCS or anything like that in 2010 before winning Atlanta. But I did go to the 75th Shonen Jump in Edison, and I played Machina Gadgets. I got my first ever feature match there. I think it was my first. Maybe it was my second. I got a feature match there. And I was playing against Frog Monarchs. I was playing Machina. And I believe I won game one, and then I lost the next two. But I ended up going 10-2 at that tournament, or whatever, X2. So whatever, I think it was 12 rounds though. But I ended up going, let's just say 10-2. And I ended up getting, I believe, like 34th or 36th place, something like that. Like I was X2, and I was one of the few X2s who did not make it. So I would have gotten my first top that weekend. I had a really good record. I thought I was going to make it, and I was fucking dream crushed. And it hurt so bad because just imagine winning 10 rounds and not topping. Like, that is so insane in anything. Like, winning 10 out of 12 is so absurd. Like, that's a topping record, and it should be a topping record, but like I didn't make it, and my tiebreakers, I guess, were trash. But that, that gave me the fire to want to do better, going forward. It's just insane when I think about it. Like, that would have been my first top. I don't think I would have won the tournament. I always say that. Like, I'm not delusional. I actually think that it kind of made it cool that my first top was a win, and I had to wait for it. If I would have topped this tournament, I would have got scraped up real quick, because not only was Jeff's deck better than Machina Gadgets, like it was meant to be. I think he 2-0'd the finals, which was a gadget deck. But I think like even the other decks that were in there, so you had the Doom Caliber deck that Billy Brick was playing, definitely would not have beaten that deck for sure. There was more than one quick draw, not just Jeff. I think Sarush was playing it as well. There was probably like Flamvel. Just every other deck was pretty much better. And I even look back on it, like I ended up losing to Frog Monarchs, but in Kenny and I's test deck, and I said this to him before he even started playing Edison format with me, I said the deck is actually not good. Frog Monarchs, it's deceiving because it looks good on paper. It has Substitute, it has Swap Frog, all of them are at 3. None of its cards are limited. Caius is absurd in format. You would think, right, like that is enough to carry it to like a top spot. Like if I had to tier it out, you would think that it would be a good tier deck, but it's before Ronin Totem, and that card changes the game for Frogs a lot, because you can do so much off of just one substitute, as opposed to like with the current Edison format, you can't do too much. And even when you do, it's not game breaking what it can do. But the most important thing, and I always say this to Kenny, is that Frog Monarchs can only do one play per turn.
Yeah. So what's interesting is like in Edison format, the Monarch deck is Frog Monarchs. And that's the only, like anytime I look at anybody talking about Edison or playing, when they play a Monarch deck, they're always playing the Frog Monarch variant. And so part of me feels like, are me and Fraser missing something? Because everybody plays this deck, and a lot of people say that it's good and think that it's good and like play it in tournaments. And I think, occasionally get some tops. I think one of the tournament. But when I play it and when Fraser plays it, and like when we look at it, like I honestly don't see
how. I never play it. I only play against it, and I destroy it every time. Basically, it's not even close. That deck is.
I don't understand.
If your opponent is competent and you're playing Frog Monarch, you're in for a treat, because it can really only do one play per turn. And once you realize that, it takes away a lot of the stress. I think that when people lose to Frog Monarchs, it's one of two things happen. Either one, they drew a massive string of Monarchs, because that is a win condition for that deck. Like if they just keep summoning Monarchs on you back to back to back, you are going to lose the game. But if you stop them at any point, if you disrupt anything that they're doing, it kind of ruins the deck quickly. For example, like I started out the format kind of playing Glad Beast, because it's one of my favorite decks. I actually went 10-0 at a Philly regional back in 2010 playing Gladiator Beast, and Ready Ari is out. Gladiator Beast Retiari, and he just shits on a lot of decks. Like we're banishing people's Malicious, banishing people's Plague Spreader Zombie, banishing people's Mizuki, and also banishing people like Vayu, and Treeborn Frog more specifically. Really, really hurts. Like it hurts a lot. And so it makes it awkward because frogs would normally be okay with just like setting Treeborn Frog and passing, and like that's kind of good against most decks, but against Glad Beast, it actually just loses you the game immediately.
So I want to say something. In 2010, I definitely, would set my Treeborn Frog unless I was playing. If I realized I was playing Glad Beast, game 2 or whatever, I wouldn't set Treeborn. Yeah. However, in 2022, 2010 format, Treeborn, I do not end my turn with Treeborn on the field because Caius is fucking everywhere. And what you said is true in the beginning of this. In 2010, everybody knew Caius was good, but he wasn't in everything.
Yeah, like we knew he was good for sure. Like, don't get me wrong, I didn't show up to Edison oblivious to the fact that Caius was better than Ryza at that point. But like, it's very apparent in 2022 Yu-Gi-Oh! How broken he is because there's only one Solemn Judgment. There's not much that can actually negate Caius, and he just fucks on people. He fucks on everything. Everything is dark in this format too. The format is just dark. So he gets that 1,000 burn damage a lot. And Edison format is a lot about tempo. So much of it is just tempo. Like if I go first and I summon Stratos and I search Malicious and I set like a Wing Blast, this is the Diva Hero deck. If I do that, that's such a strong opening for me. If I follow that turn 1 play up with a Caius, either by Wing Blast, in phase, spin your back row to the top, and then banish Malicious on Malicious, then tribute it for Caius to banish your face down monster. Like if you had a Spy or a Raikou or a Hamster or God forbid a Treeborn Frog. If you do any of those things, that follow-up play is so ridiculously strong. And it's also like half your life points, right? Like it's 18, 24, boom, boom. And it's like 2+1s basically. It's really, really strong. And if they do the 1,000 damage, like if you have a Spy set or a Sangan set, it's more than half your life points. It's just absurd how much tempo it creates, and it makes your opponent have to respond immediately. It puts them on a quick clock, and the format doesn't really have a quick clock, which makes that's what makes the format kind of fun, is that normal games go very long. You're able to actually resolve Pot of Avarice. You're able to resolve things like Gold Sarcophagus. And when I first started playing it about 3 weeks ago, it was actually funny to me. McCabe gave me a deck. He gave me the Diva Hero deck that he created, or that he put together. And it wasn't very good. Like he acknowledged the deck isn't very good. I don't think the deck is very good either. But he gave me that. He was like, this is the only spare deck I have. So like, I'm going to enter you. You're going to play with this, whatever. And I was like, sure. That deck, for as good as it is, it has so many different issues. But when I saw his list, it had 2 Gold Sarks in it. And I immediately started by taking them out the sleeves. Like he gave me the deck. I went through the deck and I was like, okay, let me see what I'm playing here. And I started taking them out. He was like, whoa. Don't take those out. Those are actually good. I was like, there's no way Gold Sark is playable. He was like, no. In Edison format, I promise, you will get 2 turns. I was like, there's no way this is good. But as we know, Gold Sark actually is playable in 2010. It's not the best card, but you will get 2 turns under normal circumstances. 99% of your games, you will get your Gold Sark target if you played it on turn 1. Even if you go second, a lot of times you'll still get it. So like, there's not much fear.
If you have a power target, for example, Future Fusion or in Lightsworn's Judgment Dragon, like if you have a power target for Gold Sark, you Gold Sark Judgment Dragon, now they're like, okay, I'm on a fucking clock because they know JD's
your opponent will get very aggressive, which then makes it when you construct your deck, you probably want to include Mirror Force and Torrential for sure. Just because Gold Sark does make people kind of rage out and play all their cards if they can, because they want to kill you. Like you're -1 for 2 turns. It's an opportunity to actually kill you. And it makes sense. Like I want to do the same thing. You got like basically Trap Dust Shooter. You're down a card. And I can literally, if you don't get to, like, I can make that card null and void if you don't get to ever see your second turn after you activated it. So it's a decent card. It touches literally anything, and you usually do get to see it. I personally still don't like playing it, if I'm being honest. I think that the decks that are good can function without it. But like decks that run Future Fusion, decks obviously Lightsworn, any deck that's running Judgment Dragon, they can get away with it because their power card is so outrageous. Like again, I do think Future Fusion is the best card in the format, and we'll get to that a little bit later.
It's fucking, depending on the deck, it's either 2 Foolish Burials or 5 Foolish Burials. Like,
yes,
it's fucking crazy.
It does a lot. So I really do think that like, I saw Gold Sark, I started taking out, then I actually played in a tournament, and our tournaments at our locals on Thursday nights are only 3 rounds, and they kind of just do it where if you go 3-0, you get 7 packs. If you go 2-1, you get 3 packs. And I think if you do less than that, I don't think you get anything, but you do get 2 packs for entering the tournament. So like pretty much everyone gets something. I've gone 2-1 the last 2 weeks playing Diva Hero. Not a very good build of the deck, but just like that was all I could play because I don't have my own Edison cards, at least not at the time. I've since ordered my own Edison cards. So I will be like trying to come up with something that feels more home to me. It definitely won't be Machina Gadgets, which is what I played in 2010, but I noticed that at that RBET tournament, the one that I was talking about that happened, I think it's January 30th. So what ended up winning that tournament was Vayu Turbo, and the deck that got second was Diva Hero. And from what I understand, the guy that got second, Silches, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but Silches Ruin, he has topped like the last 3 Edison format tournaments online or whatever it is. Like he's been doing really well with the Diva Hero deck, and I think he's one of the reasons why the Diva Hero deck is so popular, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of people are playing his build when they do play Diva Hero. His build is solid. I don't really have any complaints about his build, if I'm being honest. Like it's just a good build. He plays 3 Upstart Goblins, which I love. That's one of the things that everyone can kind of correct about Edison format is your deck can just include 3 Upstarts, and
baby.
It will not hurt your deck. I promise you.
It won't.
Like even if you're playing OTK, it will still be fine to give your opponent life points to make your deck better because drawing Future Fusion is busted, and you want to have the highest chance possible to draw. It's actually funny when I watch Kenny play against his cousin or just like any of our group of friends play on Dueling Book. They'll upstart into broken shit all the time. Like I need a Caius. There's 3 Caius in my deck. I need a Caius, and that Upstart will draw Upstart, then Upstart will draw Caius. And it's just funny, or I draw Future Fusion or something crazy.
Yeah, one thing I like about playing Upstart is I like saving it sometimes. Like if I have a turn and my turn is like set and solid, I'll be like, well, I don't need to Upstart this turn. Like no matter what I draw, it's not going to further my turn. So like I just hold the card because it's like if I don't have to give them 1,000 life points, I won't. So I'll just like hold the card. And there has been some games where I was able to win a turn earlier because I didn't use Upstart because I didn't need to search for anything. But Upstart always being there to be like, well, I need another card is so fucking good.
Yeah, I haven't come into any scenarios where I hold my Upstarts, but I'm pretty new to the format again. It's been 12 years. I have to explore it a bit more. But when I do play and I have Upstart in my hand, I usually do all my searching that I want to get out the deck, and then I'll Upstart, and then like, or if it's one of those situations where I want to know what I'm going to draw for Upstart, and then search accordingly, then I'll do it that way. But those are like the only 2 decisions I have in my decision tree with Upstart Goblin. Because typically, if I'm playing Upstart Goblin in a deck that plays traps, I just want to draw a trap before I have my turn. Like I just want to see like, if I play Wing Blast or Trap Dust Shoot or Solemn. I just want to draw a trap, but Kenny, you don't really play trap heavy decks, so like you have your own kind of thing going on where like your decks are more combo-y, less back row, and so you have different things going on with that.
So for example, the 2 decks I've played the most have been my version of Monarchs, and we can talk about that if you want, and Lightsworns, both of which don't really play traps like that many.
Yeah, they really don't.
The thing about both of those decks is there are situations where you don't want to Upstart. Like if I Upstart into a Wolf. Like if I still have 3 wolves on my deck and Upstart's not really going to further my turn much, then it's like, what is that going to do for me? Or in the Monarch deck that I play, I don't play Frog Monarchs, but I play a build, I guess it'd be more similar to like a Quick Draw Dandy deck, but I don't play Quick Draw. But it has like 2 Dandelion, 3 Debris, Treeborn Frog, and I play Level Eater, which I haven't really seen anybody in the format play. So and 3 Raikou. So my deck like turbo throughs the deck by milling, and charge the Light Brigade. But sometimes I have Foolish Burial in the deck. So 2 pots of Avarice. So if I have a turn and like the turn can't really go much further, but I still have like Treeborn in my deck, and I don't have any way. Like a lot of times I like won't Upstart because it's like, well, I don't want to draw Treeborn right now, and like no other draws really further the game plan. So I just like save it for when I need it, and I go from there. Because I like Foolish Burialing Treeborn, or whatever else. Or if I have a Phoenix Wing Blast set, I like having I'll look for Dandelion or Treeborn. That way I can Phoenix Wing Blast and pitch one of those cards or something.
Yeah, as I've said, I am of the school where I am Upstarting every time I draw it immediately, unless of course I have game on board and Upstart would change that. That is probably the only time where I don't play the Upstart immediately. But for the most part,
yeah.
If I draw Upstart, I'm going to either search first or I'm going to play Upstart and then search after. And then I calculate life points. And if Upstart would change that, then I'll hold it for a second. I'll attack you. And if you like stop me by dropping gores or your trap card is real, then I'll be like, okay, I'll Upstart main phase 2. But that's probably as much as I'll go into the Upstart thing. But I do think the card should be played in pretty much every deck. It is
I agree.
So fucking good.
Another weird thing I do in terms of like play order, and I don't know what you think about this, but like if I have Raikou or Charge and Foolish, I'll use Raikou first, like flip Raikou, or I'll Charge first instead of Foolishing like Treeborn or whatever. And I remember I did that a couple times, and like Gary commented on it, and like Stango commented on it. They're like, "Why didn't you Foolish first?" And I was like, "Well, I felt like milling first was the better thing. That way I could Foolish for a better target. Like if I milled the card that I wanted to mill, then I could Foolish for something else."
Yeah, I think that to me that seems pretty common sense. Like the card, you have a free resource when you flip Raikou. It's free to do. He's just going to do that +1 ability to pop a card and then also mill 3. So I try to get I always say, when I'm teaching you guys, I always say, get the variants out the way first, right? Like that's the thing in card games in general. I try to get the variants out the way. So Raikou is variants. You don't know what the fuck is going to happen. It's completely random. And so you flip him, you see what you mill. If you're like, oh, I milled a Dandelion. Now I know I don't have to Foolish Dandelion.
Yeah.
Now I can Foolish my Treeborn Frog or my Level Eater, or whatever your deck is doing. Your Plague Spreader, or your Malicious, or your Vayu.
And Foolishing one of those targets first, it lowers the chances of you hitting a good mill target, right? Like
just math. Like it's just straight up math. Like it's not even anything special, really. It's just one of those things. But the deck that ended up winning was Vayu Turbo for the RBET tournament. And out of 144 players, I didn't expect that really, but he kind of just pieced his opponents on turn 2 like twice. Like just the games were not long at all. It's like normal summon Dark Gruffer turn 1, get set up, and then turn 2, you're pretty much dead. A lot of that involves either drawing Caius or drawing Dark Armed. But yeah, you can just die like very easily. And there's 2 Caius in the deck. There's 1 Dark Armed Dragon. So there's like kind of 3 bombs in a way for turn 2 to where you can just kind of get blown the fuck out. And it's so much damage. Like you can just take so much damage so fast because if Greffer doesn't get off the field, right? Like say turn 1 they go normal summon Greffer, discard Vayu or discard Sirocco to send the other one. So their graveyard is now set up with 1 synchro summon that's 2300 attack. So that's 4000 between 1700 Greffer and 2300 Armor Wing. So they already have half your life points, like kind of just looming if you don't deal with Greffer. And a lot of decks just set and pass. And what happens when you set and pass? You get fucking Caius on the following turn, or you get Dark Armed or whatever, and then it's just like, this snowballed out of hand so quickly. So a lot of games actually end up going like that, and he just like scraped everybody up with it. It's a pretty good deck. I've tried it out, and when I played it, I also won really fast. I was like, damn, I don't know if I'm drawing good, or if this deck is actually just kind of cracked. Like, it's pretty fast, and it kind of. I won't really compare it to current Yu-Gi-Oh in any way because it doesn't set up negates and stuff like that. It does play Royal Oppression, which is not searchable, but like it does have this thing where it can kind of swarm the field, and most of the decks in the format don't do that. Now, what I will say is the decks that can play Future Fusion and a lot of dragons, specifically Red Eyes, Darkness Metal Dragon. I do think that the key to the format lies somewhere in Red Eyes, Darkness Metal. I'm not exactly sure what the correct route is yet. But I think that between Future Fusion being the best card in the format and Red Eyes Darkness Metal being a super easy to summon resource generating card, he's a huge body. He's dark. He can summon from hand or grave. So even if they DD Crow, you can still summon something because he doesn't target when he does that. So like if you go activate Red Eyes Darkness Metal and they see you have something in the grave that you could bring back, they go Crow and you just like, okay, well, I'm summoning this instead. So he's a very good card, but it really reminds me of just like current Yu-Gi-Oh in the sense that turn 1, if your hand is set up correctly, or if you just draw Future Fusion, you can literally summon out like multiple 2800 attack monsters or multiple 2800 and 3000 attack bodies like Dark Horse and stuff like that. And it gets out of hand. There's like a Dragon Turbo deck that plays like White Stone, Blue Eyes, 3 Debris Dragons, and a lot of draw cards like Cards of Consonance, Trade In, Super Rejuve, and it kind of just goes through his deck really quick, gets his graveyard set up for Red Eyes. On the end phase, it starts popping the Red Eyes back on the field with Red Eyes Wyvern. And then it just kills you. Like it essentially searches for stuff like Heavy Storm, Giant Trunade, so that it can pick up all your back row by drawing a lot. And then you get like a turn to do whatever you want to do, and then it'll kill you. And the deck it's decent. It's inconsistent, but it's decent. And that's kind of the thing with Edison format. When you say, Kenny, like a lot of the decks are decent, but a lot of them are inconsistent.
Yeah, and maybe, we talked about this. Maybe it's because we're used to, future Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you can make things really consistent. But there are a lot of decks like Diva Hero, for example, where you kind of just have to draw your cards. Like, you just got to draw Deep Sea Diva.
Yes, you need to see the water side of your deck,
Yeah,
and the only way to do that is to draw Diva. This is
Yeah.
a problem I have with Edison format. So there's been a lot of discussion on Facebook and things like that. People who play Edison format, people who just observe it, where we all kind of agree that Edison format it's fun. It's definitely fun, but it's a frustrating format from a deck building standpoint because basically all the decks suck. The format is super not solved. I wonder if it's possible to solve it. I wonder if we'll ever get to a point where there's a tier 0 deck or a deck that is so much better than the others that essentially we're all just playing mirror matches for the rest of the format and then we move on. I don't see that happening as of right now, although I have not gone over the entire card pool and tried to figure out myself if there's something that the entire community is missing. Also, I'm really not that guy anyway. Like, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm the guy that can go through the card pool and be like, oh God, we're all stupid. Like, why are we not doing this?
Yeah, I think that there's enough variance that I don't think it can be solved. I don't think there's any way for there to be a deck that is built and it's like, this is the format solved, this is the only deck you can play. Because I think there's so many decks and so much variance that, let's say, I'm just going to make decks up, whatever. Let's say Black Wings is the best deck, it can't be beat, whatever. I think that there's enough cards where you can do things where all right, well, this build of Lightsworn beats Black Wings, and that Black Wing deck just gets murdered, and then it's like, well, this Gladiator Beast deck actually ends up beating this Lightsworn deck. Like, I do think there's enough decks and enough variants and card choices where if somebody decides this is the best deck, you can end up doing side deck stuff or even main deck stuff to start hurting that.
Yeah, so what's interesting about it is that your deck could be the best that day for the tournament, right? You could have, if you showed up with Glad Beast at certain tournaments, you would do well because people might not be playing main deck Deep Prison, main deck Bottomless for whatever reason, right? I'm just using this as an example. And Glad Beast can really shine when they go unopposed in that way. But then if you show up in a tournament where people are blatantly siding for Glad Beast and they're main decking cards like Deep Prison and Bottomless, and you might play against too many cards that are too many decks that have big monsters. Like if you play against Hero Beat, the deck that just summons Stratos, then after that starts summoning Alias, which is a 1900 attack monster, which is way too much for Glad Beast to deal with. If you play against that deck too many times in the tournament and you're playing Glad Beast, you're going to lose. And you're out the tournament. If you play against a bunch of Frog Monarch decks, though, and you're playing with Glad Beast, you're going to win the tournament, right? So, it really depends on what the field is that day, and then your deck will kind of be good or bad that day, or depending on what your matchups are, your matchup spreads. And that's true for anything. Like we talked with Joe Dietrich about how he won with the what's that guy called? Alistair deck, the Invoke deck, the Invoke Shadal Dogmatica deck that he played, right? So he won with that, but he did say he played against a lot of Sword Soul, and that is his best matchup, and he has not lost to a Sword Soul deck.
Yeah, he was like, I haven't lost to a Sword Soul in a year. He said some crazy number.
It was a crazy stat. 2 YCSs straight, he's played a lot of Sword Soul and has never lost to a Sword Soul deck.
Yeah.
So he's lost a Bird Up. I think he lost to Kamal, who ended up winning one of the YCS remote duels. But he essentially said that because of his matchups, that made his deck choice really good for that particular tournament. He happened to go against the exact deck that he wanted. It's not like it was rocket science, it's right? The Sword Soul deck is extremely popular. It's probably the most popular deck at that time.
Yeah.
So he made a good meta call, a deck that beats it, and he played against a lot of it as opposed to playing against the other scary deck, which is Bird Up. And it worked out. He ended up winning the whole tournament. I think the same thing can happen here in Edison format is if you play against your good matchups, you will do well. When we play on Dueling Book, a lot of the time we play a bunch of game ones without siding, and I often tell the group, some of these decks are only good game one. They're at their I should say they're at their best. It's not that they're only good game one, but they're at their absolute best game one because the side deck cards against them are blowouts. For example, the Sky Scourge Neuralis deck is very, very good game one. If we were playing Master Duel,
degenerate game one.
If Edison format was in Master Duel and it was best of one, right? You just played one game and you moved on. The Neuralis deck would be so ignorant because turn one, there's really not any hand traps in Edison format outside of DD Crow. I think it's the only relevant hand trap, so I'm not even going to debate on other hand traps that might exist that no one fucking plays, like Gemini Imps or something like that. But let's just say DD Crow is the only relevant hand trap, right?
and Gores, but we're talking about that would do stuff outside of battle phase.
Yeah. Gores is not even. Yeah, I don't even consider him to be a hand trap, to be honest. He's too boomer of a card to be that now. The word hand trap, the connotation to it in 2022 does not include Gores anymore. Like that. Yeah. That is it. Just does not include him.
No.
You can't sit with us, Gores.
No.
But DD Crow is the main one. It's in everyone's side deck. I mean, literally everyone's side deck's 2 DD Crows. It's very good in the format. It hits so many different decks. A lot of decks want to do shit with their graveyard. Three-pot Avarice is legal. There's a lot of cards that it's good against. So the point is, game one, the Neuralis deck, when it goes first, and it just kind of does its thing. If it draws Future, you lose. If it draws, like, Phantom of Chaos with, like, Greffer and Neuralis and all those other things, Gold Sark and all that stuff, it can kind of just set up, blow everything up. You lose all of your cards. And then it draws one, so it goes +1 on you immediately. And then on the end phase, it typically starts summoning like Red Eyes, Darkness Metal. The deck seems really, really good. It's a glass cannon deck, though, so it doesn't really play any defense. It's kind of just like an all or nothing deck. And game one, it scrapes a lot of the decks. They don't have any way to do anything about it. They just kind of sit there and accept the dickings. And then games two, there's cards like Consecrated Light, which literally cut the entire deck off. Like, if you don't draw Red Eyes Wyvern, which is a bad card to draw under normal circumstances, if you don't draw that card, there is no way in your entire deck to get Consecrated Light off the field. Literally, that little ball, 0/0 diffs your entire deck.
That card's fucked up.
Yes, you're the one who brought it to my attention because I forgot completely about Consecrated Light, but it also...
Because I was playing against Stango was using the fucking Neuralis deck, and I was getting so annoyed, and I was racking my brain, and I go... Oh yeah, Consecrated Light.
Yeah, because what ends up happening is, as we're playing all these game ones, right, with all these different decks on the EdisonFormat.com, we're just kind of grabbing them. Like, I'll play this one, you play this one, and then we just load them up and we just play, right? What'll end up happening is, if a deck looks too good, you kind of forget that, real Yu-Gi-Oh! Includes best 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
So when you're going, 10 and 5 against your cousin, or I should say you're going 5-10, and he's playing the Neuralis deck, right? And it seems like the Neuralis deck, like, damn, he's won 10 games, I won 5. It seems really good. But you're only playing game ones, and you can't really do much against it game one. But then game two, you sign in some cards, and it makes the matchup so much worse for the Neuralis deck. Like, it goes down so many tiers. So you have to, like, pick and choose with stuff like that. Those glass cannon decks, do you want a really good game one, but then you kind of suffer games 2 and 3? You're at the luck of your opponent not drawing their side deck cards. Like, a lot of the time, it's like, if he draws DD Crow here, when I go summon Phantom of Chaos, I go activate target Neuralis, and he goes chain DD Crow, banish it, you're fucked. Like, your whole deck just fell apart. You have a Phantom of Chaos out there with 0/0 attack. That was your normal summon, which is a great resource in Edison format. I can't stress that enough. We would talk about that too, but like, that just ends your turn. And if they're playing any deck, like, it doesn't even need to be the craziest deck, but if they're just playing anything and they did that to you, you're probably just lost.
That's a good reason why I think that the format does have enough variability where it's going to be hard for there to be the best deck. Right now, a lot of people think the Diva Hero is the best deck, right? So that might mean that a lot of people's side deck is dedicated to dealing with Diva Hero. So if you go to a tournament with Neuralis, you might be able to just walk because people don't have Consecrated Light. And if it gets to the point where a lot of people are playing Neuralis, then all of a sudden everybody's going to have Consecrated Light in their side deck.
I think it is a developing matter for sure. Like, I'm looking at the winner's deck, and his side deck against Neuralis, all he has is DD Crow and Vanity's Fiend. Vanity's Fiend is another card that, if it hits the field, you probably just lose. I don't even know if you have any else of that at all. But I think the Neuralis deck, it might side. Okay, so here, the Neuralis deck actually did top. It got 3rd at the tournament. So it actually came really close to winning now that I'm looking at it. And it sided Lightning Vortex, which is a really good card for dealing with all of those nonsense cards that just get it the fuck out the club. It just takes care of, like, everything. And you have a lot of cards to discard. The deck kind of doesn't care about its hand because its goal is to discard everyone's hand anyway. So, like, cards like Lightning Vortex, they're amazing for this. But he got 3rd, which I didn't realize it placed this high, but that actually is scary because I do think this deck is toxic as hell. And it's
so toxic.
And I've actually mentioned to Kenny, I said, if this deck became popular to the point where a lot of people played this, I would probably not want to play Edison format very long. Mm-hmm. Like, if this became a standard deck that people just decided to play, I don't even care if people started main decking DD Crow because it became popular. I think that because then that's pushing it to, like, a point that I don't like.
Yeah.
Like, once we're like, well, Neuralis is the best deck, or it's a deck that you're going to play.
That doesn't happen.
Right. If people start saying that or doing that or playing it a lot, if it's a matchup that you're going to experience in every tournament a couple times and you have to start main decking cards to stop it, that is problematic as hell because the deck is really not interactive.
Yeah.
It's not
like,
an interactive deck at all.
Like, to clarify, we're not like we're not like bitching like, oh, this deck's unfair. What we're saying is like, we don't really like the deck's game plan, and if it, like, we don't think it's the best deck. But if it turns out that it is the best deck, it's the kind of deck that isn't fun to play against because it's just like, it just wipes your board, wipes your hand, and now you're just top. Like, it doesn't, you don't play Yu-Gi-Oh! You just like, well, I just top deck and hope that I win over fucking Dark Horse, Red Eyes, Darkness Metal, Dark Creator, and you're like, well, all right.
Yeah, it's just game. It's a scary ass deck. It really is. It's a fun deck to play too. It's just a turbo deck, and if you just want to kind of get some quick games in, I like the fast decks. I don't like the, sometimes I want to play like really slow Yu-Gi-Oh! And just like set my Spy or set my Reiko and all that type of thing. But then other times I do get the urge to just say, fuck it, I want to go full speed ahead, strap my helmet on real tight, and beat some, and just beat some cheeks in. So that deck is there. But alas, it did not win. Vayu Turbo won. And I think that, I think the Vayu Turbo deck is like a perfect blend between aggro and like defensive. So it actually plays, the winning deck list plays 8 traps, 2 bottomless, 2 oppression, then 1 Mirror Force, 1 torrential, 1 solemn, which are staples, kinda, and then 1 trap dust shoot, which is also a staple, kinda. So it has like these 8 traps that are all very powerful. Like I think all of them are pretty good in Edison format. You can probably make an argument for like Mirror Force, torrential, how good are they really, knowing the hindsight bias that we have now. But in Edison format, they're decent. And so it has defense in it, but then it also has this insane speed to it because of Caius and because of Greffer, and like the special summon capability. Like Greffer can special summon itself by discarding Sirocco or the Elfin, the Raven, the other Blackwing that pretty much no one really played, but he's actually not the worst. It can kind of go fast and do like 2 summons really quick, like discard Sirocco's, special summon Greffer, active Greffer effect, pitch value from hand. Then you can send another thing from, like, send Necroguard into the grave, or send, like, Plague Spreader Zombie to the grave. And then you can tribute the Greffer to summon Caius. And, like, that is such a strong play because now you have Caius. You also have this Synchro in your graveyard that's just kind of waiting to be used. Like, at any point, you're like, banish value, banish this, summon a Synchro monster, attack for a lot, like half your life. It's like very aggro. And also plays like Book of Moons. It plays all those 8 traps that I said. So it's like a mix between doing both things, which I really like. Like I actually can see how it won. I'm not really surprised about it. Like it does have a lot of good things going for it, and it's possible that this deck can be improved upon in some way. I do like the top 3 decks though. Like the Vayu Turbo deck is pretty good. Silch's Diva Hero deck, like the standard Diva Hero deck, I think that I will call this at this point, is pretty good. I think he's doing a lot of things right here. And then the Neuralis deck is also pretty good. The other deck that I do think is really nice, and I watched it play throughout the tournament. I don't know if this is actually a woman who was playing it. I'm not sure the exact gender, but the name of the player was Gia76. And I think on the stream, they kept referring to Gia as a woman. So I'm going to say she, but she played Hero Beat. The deck is super simple. And it's just a beatdown deck using heroes. It has Honest, it has Cyber Dragon, it has Captain Gold, and 1 Skyscraper. It uses Gemini Spark, one of the best cards. That card is so fucking good. I love Gemini Spark. Like, destroy any card in the field, and then you draw a card. It's so good. And then you have the Hero Blast, which is the trap card. You can, like, add back an alias from the grave, and then when you do that, if there's a monster on your opponent's side of the field that has less attack, you get to destroy it. So it can go +1, or it could just be like a 1-for-1 if you need to get back alias and just attack for game or something like that. It's pretty cool. I also like that the Hero Beat deck that Gia played, it's not the simple Hero Beat that most people are used to where it doesn't play Ocean. This one actually plays Elemental Hero Ocean, and it plays Miracle Fusion because it plays Ocean. And I think that is so cool because typically Hero Beat in the past, from what I remember, played like Beast King Barbaros as opposed to Ocean. Yeah. And Barbaros is cute and everything if you draw a skill drain, but if you don't draw a skill drain, he's just a 1900 vanilla. Which is like, we already got alias for that. You don't want 5 vanillas in your deck. Now, granted, when skill drain's on the field, he's nuts. But like, skill drain's at 2, so. I
think playing Hero Beat is a pretty strong deck. Just the fact that it's a beatdown deck, and beatdown decks get a bad rap because like they're the standard deck that everybody who gets new to Yu-Gi-Oh! And doesn't know what they're doing back in the day with 19 Archfiend Soldier, Mad Dog of Darkness, right? But beatdown decks, when actually designed by a good player and really played with certain card choices in mind, can be really strong because they just have big monsters that are hard to deal with effect monsters who typically have smaller stats.
Yes.
All of that said, adding absolute 0 to that is fucked up. Like,
yeah, it is. It makes the deck a lot different because under normal circumstances, a Hero Beat player can summon 1 monster per turn, And it's like one normal summon, and that's all they got. Like they don't really have much. I guess they do play like the 2 Cyber Dragons, but Cyber Dragon's just the vanilla that's kind of big. It's not that crazy in this format unless you're playing against like Machina or something, or they have a card trooper just lying around, which happens. That does come up, but for the most part, it's a 1 summon per turn kind of deck, and the addition of Miracle Fusion just adds an element to it that makes it a little bit more scary, because Absolute Zero is problematic as fuck. Like he's pretty ignorant. He makes things very awkward. Like normally I don't like attacking directly if I feel like the opponent has Gores, but you can just do that shit with Absolute Zero because there's nothing they could do. Yeah. There's not a thing they could do to it that will make it where the effect doesn't go off. Now, I don't mean that literally. If you book a Moon Absolute Zero and you like Caius it or whatever, it will actually not activate the effect. So like there are ways around Absolute Zero, but it's so hard and specific what you have to do to make a Absolute Zero not resolve that I'm just going to say for all intents and purposes, Absolute Zero is going to resolve. I've yet to make a Absolute Zero not resolve in Edison format since I've been playing it again. So yeah, it's really, he's just like a wall. Like he presents a problem that is really decent, a very powerful card. When I first started playing Edison format again, I thought that you could Miracle Fusion from your hand, and that is not the case. So that, that was a shock to me because I'm used to just, in Yu-Gi-Oh right now, you can do anything. You can just do fucking anything. All the fusion spells in Yu-Gi-Oh right now sent from the deck. Let's be clear. Like they just straight up sent from the deck.
The Dragon Maid Fusion spell is fucked up. Just as
what does it do?
It's it doesn't send it from the deck or anything. It's it's you fuse from your hand or field like normal. But if it's in your graveyard, you can bounce a Dragon Maid back to your hand, and you just put the fusion spell back in your hand and just fuse again. Fucking amazing.
Yeah. So fusion spells have been power corrupt, and I guess I was so used to that when I first was playing with Miracle Fusion, I think I probably tried to like fuse from my hand, and then I read it and was like, oh shit, I actually cannot do that. Because that's so broken, because that just breaks the whole... I guess if we're trying to break Edison format, you want to be able to special summon as many times as possible, right? Like that's how you break anything. I summoned like 6 times this turn, and that's not okay in any format of Yu-Gi-Oh typically. So I was like, oh, summon Stratos, like search out Ocean, play Miracle Fusion, banish the thing from my grave, banish the Ocean I just searched.
Yeah.
And then make Absolute Zero, then play another Miracle Fusion, and like maybe get rid of Absolute Zero to then clear your field.
I don't know if they really play it, but I do think maybe it's not worth it at 1. But I do think polymerization is probably pretty good, just because, like, if you summon Absolute Zero and then you just use Zero as the target and poly, and then, like, you Raigeki the field, summon another Zero, like, that's gotta be fucked up.
It's totally possible. Like, I know people are so scared to go neg, and this is the time of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where people were so big on their +1s and shit like that, right? Like, there's a lot of counting your cards and counting your opponent's resources, and well, at the end of the day, you just need to win the game. And as we've learned from current Yu-Gi-Oh, it doesn't matter if you go negative or minus whatever, as long as you put yourself in a position to win. That's at the end of the day the most important thing. So it's possible that like there's strategies that may involve some kind of turboed out, Fusion King or King of the Swamp and polymerization or something like that just kind of special summon a bunch of times. Yeah. I want to go into what you mentioned earlier because I talk about this. This is one of my biggest complaints. I think I'm probably the original one who brought it up in our group, but like for me, all the decks kind of suck. So I'm coming back to that original point. All the decks kind of suck because they have to just draw their cards raw, right? So Diva Hero, as good as it is, it's performing the best in the format. But the problem that I have with it is that you need to draw the water side of the deck. You need to draw the Miracle Fusions. You need to draw the hero side of the deck. And then I also want to kind of say you probably want to draw a Caius at least 1 per game too. So you have like all of these components that you want to see every game, but they're not really that searchable. The hero side is with Rhoda and E-Call, you could do that. But then after that, you're at the mercy of your deck to just give you a water monster, which is Diva or Treeborn Frog. And if you don't see that, then it just kind of like makes it super awkward. It becomes super awkward when your hand is like, okay, I'll open Stratos. Sure, summon Stratos, search out a thing. It doesn't play any water targets. So, if you want, you could be like hardcore and play Ocean in your Diva Hero deck, which is not the craziest thing to do. A lot of people already play Alias. Like the guy that got second actually did play Alias, which I like Alias a lot for utility. But you can switch to Alias to an Ocean if you think that's more, important to have a searchable water monster.
I do think Ocean would probably be a pretty good ad.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like a lot of decks, they can be tweaked, but then Ocean, he does also suck. So it's kind of awkward. Like it's like, and that's the thing though. This is the frustration with the Edison format. And this is part of the reason why it's frustrating, but I also think it's fun. for these reasons, is that it's so hard to kind of like solve your deck building. It's really difficult because you do want the ocean for the searchable water target off of Stratos, because sometimes you don't need to search alias, you don't need to search malicious. You might have already drawn malicious, or you just don't have a wing blast, so there's no point to add malicious to your hand. You don't want to just malicious in your hand for no reason, because then if you draw the second one, it's kind of just silly, right? You look stupid.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you're sitting there hoping to draw a diva, or what happens to me pretty often is I'll just draw fucking Spine Gilman, and my deck is Spine Gilman Turbo.
Spine Gilman Turbo.
Yeah, I've had games where I just draw like Diva, Spine, Gilman, Diva, and it's like, okay, obviously that's unrealistic. But then there are just games where I just draw Diva and like Caius, and no, I don't see any of my hero side. Like I don't see Stratos, and there's 3 of them in the deck, like Ecall, Rhoda, Stratos himself. And those games suck. Like it feels really bad when you're just waiting for that. Or even worse, I guess, is when you do see the perfect blend, right? So you see the Stratos, and then you see the Diva follow-up, and you even got the Wing Blast to get your Malicious in the grave. And so everything's going well, but then you just never see a Miracle Fusion. I mean, you just never fucking see it. You go the whole game drawing fucking shitty cards like Infernal Prodigy and whatever, all these other cards that are just not that good, like Wing Blast after the fact. Like you don't need Wing Blast. After you do the first Wing Blast and discard Malicious, you kind of don't need it after that. It's just kind of So a lot of times it gets awkward where you're top decking and you're just hoping to God that you draw Miracle Fusions off the top and like, all right, I hope to overwhelm you with this, but if this doesn't get there, then I'm just screwed. So I don't like that feeling of it, and that is not exclusive to Diva Hero, I realized very quickly.
Yeah. I think just on that note about Ocean, and I could be wrong, but I don't really feel like Alias adds much to that Diva, to that deck.
It doesn't.
I do think, just off the top of my head, I do feel like Ocean would be better because Ocean has a higher chance of being a combo target and furthering the turn, whereas Alias is just a body on the field, and I don't really think that adds much to your game plan.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because Ocean itself sucks, but he has great synergy, the best synergy with what you're trying to do. So it's one of those things, and whereas Alias, he doesn't have the best synergy, but 1900 in Edison format is actually a pretty decent stat to have, all things considered. Like if you're in a tournament where you're playing against Glabbies, then Alias, the one Alias is actually insane.
Yeah.
Because that can just wall them out. But if you're in a tournament that doesn't have a lot of Glabbies, Alias is just kind of like, well, this is going to run into a Spy or a Raiko all the same, right? So it might as well just be Ocean at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
So it really comes down again to like what you play against, what you expect the field to be. At my local right now, I think there's like 1 Glabbies player. Sometimes there's 2, but there's like 1 Glabbies player that you can run into. So I wouldn't really be too hard pressed to make my deck for Glabbies per se.
Yeah, I also think that's kind of what the side deck's for, right? Like I think your main deck you should try to make as consistent as possible, and then your side deck is for dealing with shit.
Yes, that's true. I mean, that's how it should be. And so there's some debate to be made with there. But so I've been bringing up Glabbeast a lot because I do like the deck. I actually did play it a lot in 2010. And yeah, the deck it's been neutered, so it has 1 Glabbeast Bestiary. I think that's the main hit to it. I think everything else that it has is pretty much unlimited. It also has 1 Rescue Cat, which is broken as fuck.
Rescue Cat is so good.
But what Glabbeast has that the other decks don't have is a toolbox where all of your cards can kind of just access each other. It's like this network of cards. So when you get to your battle phase and you clear a battle phase, you kind of can now pick up your deck and do whatever the situation calls for. And that feels really good in this format, where a lot of the other decks are at the mercy of like, oh, did I draw Swap Frog? Did I draw a Raiko to get started? Did I draw the Bree Dragon? Did I draw Pot of Avarice to put my resources back?
Yeah. Did
I draw JD or a way to get JD? Did I draw Stratos? Did I draw Diva? Did I draw Miracle Fusion? Did I draw Greffer? Like all of these decks have to draw very specific things that are not that searchable to kind of do their thing. Whereas Glabbeast, like 1 Glabbeast is every Glabbeast technically, unless it's Secutor. Fuck him. But like the other Glabbeast, they're all like one. Like Marmillo is literally Laquari, it's Bestiary, it's all of them. So if you get 1 attack off and it's successful, it just you pick up your deck and you can just do so much.
On that note, and we were just talking about this on the stream the other day. Glabbeast also, can set up a fucked up board with her Chariot.
Yeah.
And, dude, on the stream yesterday, I got so annoyed. Not really annoyed, but fun annoyed. Somebody in chat was like, well, I'll just Lava Golem it. And I was like, why are you playing Lava Golem?
Right.
like
yeah, like that's not.
Who's playing Lava Golem?
Yeah, that's not real.
And then somebody else said, like, well, Kaijus. I was like, they don't exist. What are you talking about?
That guy was memeing you. You were getting fucking memed is what was happening.
But Herc Chariot, on top of being able to search your whole deck, like, Herc Chariot is, like, really fucking hard to deal with.
I don't think so. Personally, I mentioned this to you off the podcast. I have never lost a game where I summoned Herc and had Chariot in my life.
Yeah,
I've gone 10-0 at multiple regionals in my life. And like Philly regionals are really big, so they're always 10 rounds. I've gone 10-0 at multiple regionals in the Philadelphia area, like this general area, with Glad Beast, because of specifically once I get her Chariot, there is nothing you can do. Because I'm not a person that just likes to negate shit. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. You can literally do anything. I don't care. Like, do whatever you want to do, my friend. Like, literally do anything. I let everything go. And it's so funny when people are squirming and trying to get out of it because, like, they do all of these weird little obscure things and they just, like, stare at me and,
They're trying to bait the negate. They're like, Upstart Goblin? And you're like, go ahead, draw.
Dude, draw your card. Like, you could have drawn that yesterday. Like, pick up your deck. Like, do what you want. I'm only negating one thing. You go summon Caius, I'm going to negate that. You go summon Dark Arm, I'm going to negate that.
Yep.
Like everything else walks. Everything else walks. Like it doesn't. I'm not worried about anything you're doing. So I've never lost with that setup in my life, and it feels really good when you get it. It's not easy. It's not the easiest thing to get. So I don't know. Sit here and cap like Glad Beasts are broken in this format. They're just good. Like I think it's a good deck. I think it's a deck that is in contention always. You always have to think about Glad Beasts when you're building your side deck, and it's one of those decks that can steamroll the fuck out of you if they just see some of their powerful cards like Cold Wave, Rescue Cat. If they draw a Chariot and they go first, it can just be really difficult to beat them. If they have Starlight Road and you happen to draw heavy, it's like sucks for you because you just lost the game like 100%. But like the deck is really good. There's also other interesting decks that topped. So the deck that got 5th place was this Phoenician Cluster deck that is like a burn plant deck. I don't even know what to fully call it, but it's kind of cute. It plays 3 Titanial and 3 Phoenician Cluster Amaryllis, or however you say it.
Gary played that deck on me the other day, and I didn't realize what it was, because like he didn't burn me really at all. And then we got to the end of the game and ended up losing because like I just didn't realize what kind of deck it was, and then I attacked him, and I was going to attack for game, and he did like the volcanic counter in the graveyard, and he was like, "You're dead." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And I went and I was like, oh, I didn't realize that was in the grave or that it even did that.
Yes. So Volcanic Counter is actually just wild.
Yeah.
This deck is very interesting because like you said, you kind of don't realize that they're putting a knife in slowly. You take so little damage. Every time Phoenician Cluster gets summoned, right? It does 800 damage to your opponent. So it comes back and it just deals 800. And 800 times 10 is 8,000. So it takes 10 times for that to kill you. But the monsters that it also, like 3 Titano, they're big. Like, that's a big-ass monster.
Yeah. Like, I didn't even realize it was a burn deck. In my head, I was like, all right, well, I guess this like, she's just in here because she's easy to summon and she's a Titanial target to negate a card, like, whatever.
Right. That's the deceit of the deck. It looks that way. It genuinely looks like it's just a plant deck of some sort. And then you start losing life points and you're not really sure, like, okay, anyway, I took 800, that's fine. Main phase 2, whatever, do my thing. And then the next thing you notice when you go to do a big battle phase, you start getting burned for a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not funny anymore at that point. So the deck got 5th, and I think that the surprise factor is a big reason for that. Also, I don't think people know how to play against it.
Yeah.
So it has a lot of those qualities going for it. It's an interesting deck for sure. I haven't explored it much, I'm going to be honest.
I do think what you said, the surprise factor is a good point. Because, like, for example, I lost to it, and I was surprised. But I think that if I played again, I'd be like, okay, now I know what this deck is, and I can handle things a bit differently.
Yeah, it's one of those. But the deck is interesting. It might pop up a couple more times. People may start to know how to play against it and maybe even side for it or whatever. It's interesting. Yeah. The deck that got 6 at that tournament was another interesting deck. It's a fairy deck, and it plays 3 Archlord Christia, 3 DD War Lady, 3 Dimensional Alchemist, 2 Free the Brave Wanderer, and 3 Herald of Orange Light, which is a card that's currently played in real life Yu-Gi-Oh! And Drytrons. Double Honest. And then it plays a package of 3 Shining Angels and 2 Nova Summoners. And what that does is if they see 1 Nova Summoner or 1 Shining Angel, you have a monster that they can crash into. They just literally crash until they get 4 fairies in the grave, and then they summon Archlord Christia, and then you're dealing with a walking Vanity's Emptiness.
Yawn. From the dawn of time, fairy decks have been so fucking corny. From the dawn of time, from Archlord Christia to Herald of Perfection to Herald of Ultimateness, they're all fucking whack.
Damn. Shit on them.
I hate fairy
Tell us
decks.
how you really feel.
It's interesting. Something I do think is cool, and I give Yu-Gi-Oh! I find it interesting that they do try to make their archetypes do a thing that feels familiar, and like they continue to do it. Like I feel like fairy decks have had the same game plan since they were invented. You know what I mean? Like they haven't changed. And similarly, machine decks, right? Machine decks, machine decks became a thing, their goal was kill you. Right, you're dead. Attack.
Yeah, I got a battle phase. You took the damage, and you're probably just dead.
So I do think that's interesting. Fairy decks have always been like these annoying, grindy, negate kind of decks, stop you from doing stuff. Machine decks are just like I kill you in one turn kind of decks. And from 2005,
graveyard manipulation.
Yeah, zombies or graveyard manipulations from 05 all the way to 22. I do think it's cool that some archetypes have remained having that thread through them or whatever the fuck I'm trying to say.
No, there's a common thread through the fairy decks. I have not played with this deck. This is not one of the decks that we played with yet. I don't know. I guess none of us just wanted to play it. It seems kind of lame.
Gary played it. I played against Gary with it.
How did it go?
It was weird, but I beat him because I just very deliberately made sure he never had 4 fairies in the grave. I very deliberately was like, you are not summoning Archlord Christia.
Yeah, you avoided putting a monster on the field that he can crash into. You probably Caius and Rise into him a lot because you play like Monarchs and stuff.
Yeah.
Your deck is probably not a good matchup, or I should say your deck is a good matchup. You have a good matchup against the fairy deck, I would say.
I think so.
Just the way your deck plays, I think that it probably has a good. You play like Soul Exchange, which they don't want to see that. And normally people, they're special summoning a lot. Christia affects them, but your deck is like, well, I'll just Soul Exchange to Stalos that shit. And it's
Yeah.
Like that. And that could be bad too, especially if you fuck up their account. Because if you Soul Exchange Christia, she goes on the top of the deck, right? When she's sent to the graveyard, I believe. And then after that, if you Destalos and drop a card out their hand, like that could end up fucking up their account.
Yep.
So, and then they're just top decking this bad card. Because what does it say? If this face up card will be sent from the field to the graveyard, placed on top of the deck. Yes. So she literally rises herself every time she dies, which that could be a bad thing sometimes, depending on if they do something to you. But yeah, this deck is interesting. I mean, it got 6. That's pretty out of 144 people for a deck this random, this rogue, to come out of nowhere and just do that. Like the surprise factor for sure was a key aspect of why it did so well.
Something that's interesting. Does anybody see success with Quick Draw Dandy Warrior, the deck that actually won Edison?
So that is very interesting. I don't think so. It's very weird. Like the deck won the tournament, and I think the deck was genuinely good for that tournament. Obviously, with the knowledge that we had back then, the deck was actually good for that tournament. However, looking back on it, I don't think the deck is very good. Like I've played tested with it a couple times since
played with it,
and it just felt very underwhelming. And that's because the decks are just better around the format now. So whereas, Jeff played Gadgets in the finals. I don't think that Gadgets will ever be in the finals again in the Edison format. I don't think Gadgets will ever be anywhere near the finals of an Edison tournament ever again in life. I'm just going to say that right now. So just think about how limited the knowledge was back then in 2010, where Gadgets can make it to second at that tournament, right? Like that just speaks volumes to how things have changed. Also, Frog Monarchs deck is also free.
I definitely don't think Gadgets are I think they're playable and they're good, but I don't think they could win a tournament right now.
Yeah, they're playable for sure, I guess, but it's just not a very good deck. It has a very low ceiling.
Yeah. So
you can't do a lot, and I think that is problematic in this format, which is why I don't like Frog Monarchs, because the ceiling is so low. You get one play per turn. Gadgets are very similar. They pretty much play one thing per turn, like summon one gadget, play Smash and Ground or Hammer Shot, and set some back rows or whatever. You know what I mean? It's very linear. Your opponent can kind of predict what you're going to do. And I think it's one of the few decks in the format where Stardust Dragon actually fucks on it. Stardust Dragon is not very good in Edison format, unless you have back rows. Just raw Stardust Dragon is just kind of Like, I guess if you're playing as Glad Beast, maybe, but even that deck has a lot of outs to it. Like, Book of Moon is at 3 and all types of other stuff. And Compulse, I think, is at 3 as well, which is interesting. But, like, Stardust Dragon doesn't really work against any deck, but it does work really well against gadgets. So, Jeff, if he plays against gadgets, right, like, he summons fucking Debris Dragon and makes Stardust Dragon against that deck and then sets any amount of back row. That's just, like, a bottomless with Stardust is game. Because they're going to try to summon Machina Fortress to crash, and you bottomless it, and they don't have an out to Stardust. Like, that card is going to walk, especially if you don't attack with the Stardust. If you just, like, Stardust in defense, and then never attack with it, or even Stardust in attack and just don't attack with it.
Yeah,
I don't think they can deal because it's not getting deprisoned now.
Yeah, it doesn't get deprisoned, and yeah, I mean that's one of the big things that'll stop Stardust. It's deprison and Caius, but if you can put them in a position where they can't summon a Caius and you just don't walk on the deprison.
Gadgets don't play it. Gadgets do not play Caius, so it's just not a good deck. But I just want to give that, like, anecdotal evidence of why I don't think the quick draw deck is very good in hindsight. It's for sure, like, for that tournament, for Edison format, for the actual tournament back then in 2010, it was a great deck. But obviously, we have the lens of all of Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Today is no time is better than the present. And looking back on it, it's just, there's a lot of things that can be improved upon. So maybe there's a version of the quick draw deck that is better than the version that, like, Jeff and Sarosh played that got, like, top 1 and top 4 or whatever it was, that makes it a little bit more modern.
Mm-hmm.
But when I tried to play it card for card, it just felt incredibly slow, and it has that same issue where if you don't draw certain cards, so I had a problem where I couldn't draw a Pot of Avarice in 4 games. I think I drew it once maybe in like 4 games, and that shit felt awful. Obviously that could just be me being unlucky, but like I think that even if I did draw Pot of Avarice more often, I don't think it fixed my main issue with the deck. My main issue was that I set too much. There was way too much just like set a monster, pass, set a monster, pass, set a monster, pass. And setting a monster is cute and all, like turn 1 when you're going first. But with Edison format the way it is, with the whole, most people playing a lot of Caius and all that type of stuff, it gets awkward when you're setting a monster and your opponent's developing a field.
Yeah.
It's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling to go set this monster and your opponent's just over there literally summoning multiple times, because whereas your field is getting kind of taken down, they're just constantly building it up, and it gets to a point where it's like a boiling point. It's like, well, shit, I'm now at 1,600 life points, and I'm still over here setting a hamster or setting a Raikou and hoping that nothing goes wrong with that face down monster. I don't like that feeling. So the deck doesn't feel really good. Also, Quick Draw Synchron is a terrible card. Just full disclosure for anybody wondering if you're still up in the air about like the Edison format, Quick Draw Synchron is awful. It is so fucking bad. It only has synergy with like Dandelion and maybe Volcanic Shell for people who play that shit. Don't really think any of that is worth it as of right now. And if somebody can make me eat my words and come and win an Edison tournament or do well at an Edison tournament with like some quick draw deck, then by all means. But a lot of times you're just going minus to not really do anything that's crazy overwhelming.
Yeah, you just made Drill Warrior, and like, I don't know. Like, Drill Warrior is obviously good, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's not like game ending or anything in this format. Like, it's tame. It's very tame. So Quick Draw Synchron requires you to draw kind of nice, in my opinion, to make him decent. Like, if you draw with Dandelion, you're congratulations.
Yeah.
If you don't draw Dandelion with Quick Draw Synchron, that card is a brick. It is god awful.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of like the gripes I have with the Quick Draw deck, and it's so interesting because that's the deck that won the tournament, but the format is not named Quick Draw Dandy Warrior format or anything like that. It's named Edison format for a reason, because I think everyone kind of realizes that's not the best deck. And it's interesting too because decks that are the best in the format, their formats are named after them.
Yep.
So Zoo format, Lightsworn format, Teledad format, Necros format, BA format. There's a lot of that, right? So the name of the format is Dragon Ruler format. You hear that shit all the time. It's not called Spellbook format. It's not called Dragon Ruler Spellbook format. It's just called Dragon Ruler format.
Yep.
It's because everyone knows, and it's not break, like, you can't go back to it and like fix it and make it where Dragon Rulers are not the best deck. It is just the best deck in 2013 with all the cards available. There is nothing better than Dragon Rulers, and that's just kind of like,
is insane. As a quick side note, do you know why all the Dragon Rulers are banned except Tempest? Why is the Wind one not banned and all the other ones are? I don't understand that.
Is that how it is in current Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah, in current Yu-Gi-Oh, Blaster, Title, and Redux are banned, but Tempest is just like, nah, I'm out here.
I have no idea, because honestly, in 2022, there isn't a single thing that any of those Dragon Rulers do that is more broken than just a current card pool already.
Yeah. I don't get it.
So it's one of those things that Konami just has certain cards on the ban list that don't need to be there anymore. Like, I wonder if Tribe Infecting Virus is still banned.
I don't know. I think I might have got errated. I actually think they errated it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that card was on the ban list for a very long time, and Tribe has not been relevant. Tribe could have been legal in 2010. Like, we could have been playing Tribe literally in 2010 in Edison format, and no one would have. I don't think that card would have been played at all. It's not good.
He was on the ban list forever. It's funny, like Tempest, I literally just use it as a consistency card. I gold Sark it so I can search a wind monster, and that's it. Like,
it's broken. That little interaction is broken, but like, it's still not crazier than anything else that people are doing in Yu-Gi-Oh today. You know, like, if you did that to me, like if you gold Sark Tempest and searched, I'm like, okay, sure. Like, I wouldn't even think twice about it. I was like, that's fine. Like, that's just fine.
That's all it does. Like, I don't know.
Like,
if
I'm not ashing that.
Else, but
yeah, like I wouldn't ash you. I wouldn't do it. Like, I wouldn't gamma you. I wouldn't stop your Tempest from resolving in any meaningful way. I would 100% hold ash for something way scarier. And if your deck doesn't do anything scarier, then like, fuck me, I guess. I'd just let you search. But like, I don't think I'm in too scary of a position. So
yeah, Edison format, not quick draw format.
Yes, it's called Edison format for a reason. There are so many decks. It's a really, really fun format. I do want more people to get on board. Our area is popping. Like, we have tournaments every single week, 2 tournaments a week. We have tournaments on Thursday and Sunday of Edison format. So we're doing well over here. And also, Philly has a regional coming up. And March 26th, I believe, is actually a regional tournament. They pretty much Konami canceled, I think, every regional tournament up to March 26th. So, luckily, if you go on the website and you look at all the tournaments before March 26th, they canceled every single one. But then not Edison format, but the Philadelphia one in Oaks, PA or whatever is actually still happening on March 26th, which is so nice. It's one of the first regionals. I think it's going to be huge. It's going to have to be capped because we've had Philly regionals get to 1,000 players and we had to just like cut it off. I used to judge them all the time. So we had to say, sorry, but like, we're at capacity at this point. We're at 800 plus players and this is giving YCS now. Like, you guys have showed up to play in a regional. Thousands of people have literally showed up to play in a Philly regional. And I think that the whole Philly regional thing has gotten a connotation of that too. Like, Philly regional, people fly in to play in a Philly regional. It's that big of a deal. We got the Reading Terminal across the street and all of that type of thing. So it's really one of those events. It feels bigger.
Like, that area where it is a great area to like be for the day.
Wawa, Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, Reading Terminal, just Center City, Philadelphia in general. You're in a really good spot. Also, I think the Crystal Ballroom for Philly just looks amazing, right? Like, the actual room where Philly regionals are held looks really nice.
Yeah.
It's carpeted, nice chairs, nice tables, enough space for everybody. And the vendor station is nice. It's good. It's Philly regionals it's not a basement in a church or anything like that. It's really nice. And yeah, so that's happening. And I'm wondering if we can get like maybe a couple Edison tournaments running that day or like a maybe little 8-man tournaments where it's just like 8 people play, everybody gives up 10 or $20. You guys just kind of play Edison, a little Edison 8 person 3-round tournament, winner takes all type of thing. Cause that would be fun.
That would be
right.
Cool.
Like little things like that, like little pods, like, oh, a little Edison pod is running like as a side event. Cause Konami is supporting this. It's not just the community saying, hey, fuck Konami. We want to run old formats. So we're just choosing Edison and that's going to be it. Like, Konami has actually allowed the stores to run older formats, and it seems that a lot of the community has decided that Edison is the one they want to play. Obviously, a lot of people probably want to play Goats too, but Goats are pretty much solved.
Goats are solved,
if not actually solved.
I don't think there's much. Whereas, like in Edison, even if it got solved, where people are like, this is the best deck. Well, like I said, I think there's enough variance between side deck and main deck cards where you can just hate that. You can make it so that deck isn't really good, and I think there could be a meta that like circulates in Edison. Whereas Goats, I do really feel like it's kind of like, this is what it is.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Edison format is much more interesting to me and to a lot of other players. Apparently, a lot of people are picking it up. It's not just the Philly area. There's players from all over the country talking about it, picking up cards. The market.
I want to say real quick, I'm sorry. If you enjoy playing Goats, I'm not hating. Like, enjoy it. Like,
yeah,
have fun. Like, I'm not trying to put another format down. I'm just, for me, it's not as interesting. But
yeah,
have
and
fun.
we've also
play what you want to play.
Right. We've also played a lot of Goat format last year. Like, we've been in this pandemic for a while. And we've had the opportunity to play a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! And other card games and stuff like that virtually because we're all home. And we played our fair share of goats. And, it is what it is. It's fun when it's fun, and then it gets boring really quick. And it's like, I don't want to play this anymore for the next 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I felt.
Yeah, like I don't have any desire to play it anymore. And even when I saw people supporting old formats or Konami supporting it, I was hoping to God that GOATS wasn't where it was going to go. And it looks like that's not where it's going to go. I think Edison has a higher chance of being the format than GOATS does. At least that's what it looks like to me. And I'm hoping that it stays that way because it's just better. It's just straight up better. Like everyone has this big brain thinking they're so good at GOATS, and like that's fine. You could be the best in GOATS all you want. Like it's cool. Like you're a cool guy. Let's see if there's anything else I want to say. So we did talk about like the glass cannon decks. You got like Dragon Turbo, Neuralis, Lightsworn. All decks have like kind of hard to draw their cards except Glad Beast because it's like a full toolbox. Once you enter a battle phase and you clear your battle phase, you can pick up your deck and kind of get what you want. I made a point about I think that the best deck, I don't know what the best deck is, but I think the best deck probably plays Future Fusion in some way and Red Eyes Darkness Metal. I just think there's something there. All decks are pretty bad in their own way. That's what makes the format so interesting. It's so frustrating at the same time. From a deck building perspective, Frog Monarchs are unplayable. 1 play per turn. Every deck that's 1 play per turn, like Gadgets, I also think is unplayable in hindsight. Even though I got second at the Edison tournament, I don't think that will ever happen again. You're just kind of summarizing some of the points that we made throughout this episode. But yeah, I think if you guys are interested in this, check out edisonformat.com. Their website is really, really, really phenomenal. And it honestly is the reason why I feel comfortable getting into this because the community has put so much work into making this possible. This resource, I cannot stress it enough. It's just such a good resource to have.
Yeah, it's super useful. Just the simple being able to click. And because one annoying thing, I think the most annoying thing about building a deck, I don't really get annoyed building the main deck, but it's always like putting the same extra deck cards in or just like the standard staples. It's like,
yes,
God damn it. Like, all right, type it in. So when you can just like import the deck and be like, all right, now I just take out these 10 cards and put my 10 cards in and I'm good to go.
Yes. I guess I'll round out, just give a quick, because we talked about the top 6 decks from that RBET tournament that had 144 players. 7th place was Zombies, so it's like Diva Zombies. I remember this deck. I actually played this deck a little bit back in the actual time when Edison format was a thing, and it's cute. If you get Gobble Zombie and Diva, like you can kind of OTK your opponent, and that's really cool. It's not anything too special. Book of Life is cute, I guess, but Mizuki's at 1, so you run into that same inconsistency issue that the other decks have, where like your best cards are just limited,
Dude,
like Plague Spreader.
I remember zombie players crying forever when Mizuki went to 1.
Yeah.
Like Mizuki at 1, it crushed a lot of zombie hearts.
And it's such a broken card at anything more than 1, though.
Yeah.
So like it's like Malicious. It's the problem I have with Malicious. Malicious is so broken at 3. And like Malicious is so broken at 3 that he tends to just be, you have to put him at 3 or ban him. He's either unplayable or just too playable.
Yeah.
And this has been a thing even in recent Yu-Gi-Oh formats. Like 2018, Malicious was played in the best deck, the Goki deck, at one point, because he was at 3, which is a mistake. And he was just too much. Like summon Armageddon Knight, send Malicious to the grave, or summon Dark Greffer, send Malicious to the grave. I don't know if Armageddon Knight can actually send him, I forget. But like the point is, he's really easy to get to the grave. And once you do, with Link Monsters now being a thing, he can just do so many plays. And he's really ridiculous. And Edison format, he's at 2. So he's very frustrating in Edison format to me. Like I hate Malicious for as good as he is in the Diva Hero deck and all that stuff. I just hate having to play Malicious. It feels so gross because a lot of times you don't have anything to do with Malicious if you don't draw Diva or Caius. You just kind of have Malicious Engrave. And every time you have Malicious Engrave is a turn for you to draw the other Malicious. So I hate that waiting part.
Yeah.
But that's like one of my gripes. Then the deck that got 8th was another Diva Hero deck featuring Bubble Man. That's the only thing that was special about it. I want to say everything else seems pretty standard overall.
I didn't have a conversation with that guy. I didn't know what Bubble Man does.
If you're losing really bad,
but like, why is Bubble Man in that deck? I need to know.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If you're losing really bad,
was this the same tournament that was streamed?
This is.
I need to go watch his matches to see if Bubble Man ever did anything.
Yeah, I doubt it.
I need to see. Because I can't imagine playing Bubble Man. Yeah,
because how does he work? If you have no cards in your hand, you can special summon it, right?
I think you have to have. I could be wrong. I think you have to have no cards in your control or in your. I think you have to be at top deck. Like, I think you have to.
So that's the draw. That's the draw too. But if you have no cards in your hand, you can special summon it from your hand. So
okay.
So he does have like
you still got to top deck him, but you know.
Yeah. So he has a little utility. Like he has to be the only card in your hand to special summon him. But I could see where this could go if you have Diva and him in your hand, and those are your only two cards. Or if you have him and Malicious in your hand. Yeah. I mean, not him and Malicious. Him and Caius, the best fucking normal summon in the game, basically. If you have like Bubble Man Caius is your only two cards, you're like special tribute like that.
No, you can't, right? Because you need no cards in your hand.
Oh, never mind. So he doesn't actually do anything. Yeah, he doesn't do anything.
You need no cards in your hand for him to be special.
So I guess I was thinking about Diva again. So if you go normal summon Diva, search Diva, right? So you have two Divas, and then now your only card in hand is Bubble Man. Then you go special Bubble Man, and you can make a 6 to make it 8.
Yeah.
So that's why I got a little overzealous with my whole Caius thing. I wanted him to do a bit more.
You wanted him to be like Cyber Dragon Caius. Like, that's not what he does.
Yeah, he doesn't do that. You have Infernal Prodigy for that, which is another shit card that you have to play. But yeah, so he pretty much is just for drawing him with Diva, I guess, and he's a water monster. Let's not forget that part. And maybe better than Ocean. I don't know. But yeah, that got 8th, and the guy also I'm noticing there actually are a couple changes that this guy he plays double Dark Grepher, and he also plays Armageddon Knight, and he plays Plague Spreader Zombie. So his deck is pretty different from the guy that got second, in the sense that he's playing more of a dark package, and the dark, like he's playing Dark Arm, he's playing Armageddon Knight and Dark Grepher. So there's a lot more going on.
I guess Bubble Man does have some niche uses over Ocean, and the fact that he's still a hero water searchable, it's just like Ocean.
That utility.
He's got some niche uses.
You could also set all your cards and then special Bubble Man, then play Miracle Fusion.
Yeah.
So like if you have Stratos, right, and 5 spell and traps, you could go summon Stratos, search Bubble Man, set 5 spell and traps, special summon Bubble Man, and then you could immediately start Miracle Fusioning right there.
Yeah. So I guess he's not as bad as I was saying.
Yeah, we thought he was bad. I thought he was a little better than he actually was with the whole Caius thing, but like him and Diva, I think is a pretty nice like that, because you can just summon Diva first and then leave him as your only card in hand, and then special summon him, and that's going into a 6, and then maybe Goyo attack, take their monster, then making another monster with the second Diva. That could be nice.
Yeah, that could be good.
So
he's got some uses. He's got some uses.
Yeah, he's not terrible. Like again, these decks that have made top 8, they're pretty decent. Like I have to be honest, like they're pretty good decks. Like I don't have many complaints about these decks. They're genuinely pretty good. I think this guy should be playing Upstart Goblin. But like I think the guy who got second did play 3 Upstart Goblins. So you might want to consider.
I don't think you've talked about this yet, but you have talked about Glad Beast a lot. But from what I've heard, you don't believe in a lot of the Glad Beast lists you've seen.
So on this website, edisonformat.com, there are some Glad Beast deck lists, and they are interesting to say the least. The first one, if you click on Glad Beast, the very first one that I saw was wild. It played 3 Super Nimble Mega Hamster, and then plays 3 Raikou, and it plays 2 X-Saber Arabellum, and obviously with that is going to play Rescue Cat.
It's crazy.
Now, my issue with this deck, I have a couple things actually. So it plays a lot of non-Glad Beast monsters, so much so that I think it plays more non-Glad Beast than Glad Beast.
Yeah, this is wild.
And then it also doesn't play Glad Beast War Chariot, and I cannot stress enough that War Chariot is like, in this format where it's really hard to get additional summons, Chariot ends people's turns a lot. Like when you corner somebody, you force it where like Caius is your only play. Like your play is Tribute for Caius, and I have Chariot. You skip their turn. Like that's what that card does. So I don't really like this list. It's more explosive. But if he was going to go all out like this, you might as well include Summoner Monk here too. Like you might as well just play Summoner Monk, because Summoner Monk can get Rescue Cat, and then I could get like what's the guy called? The Beast 3-star Glad Beast Sam Knight. His name's Sam Knight.
Yeah.
And like Test Tiger or something. You know what I mean? Like I feel like this should be teching, because I'm noticing he doesn't play Test Tiger, whoever this is. I feel like I would play at least 1 copy of Test Tiger if I'm going to be playing Rescue Cat, and then like the whole Sam Knight package. But this is like a mix between Synchro Cat and Glad Beast, and it just seems like a lot going on. So when I saw this, I said absolutely not.
Yeah, this is an interesting deck list.
The second deck is more interesting, or I should say, it's not more interesting. It's more normal, I would say. It plays Test Tiger. It plays, all the monsters are Glad Beast except Rescue Cat. and it looks pretty decent. It has Fiendish Chain and Shrink in it, which are interesting choices. It also has Icarus Attack.
I think Shrink is a good call. Icarus Attack, I think, is weird. You only have like
3
You only
targets.
have a quest, right? A quest and
Bestiary.
And Bestiary. Like, I don't...
But here's the thing. You have to remember, you can access a Winged Beast at any time. So don't think of it as you only play 3 targets. Think of it as any battle phase equals Icarus Attack is live.
Yeah.
So once you put that in perspective, it actually isn't as crazy as you think. And I actually did, back in the day, I played a Glad Beast deck with 1. I wasn't bold enough to play 2, but I did play 1 Icarus Attack.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a blowout. It's one of those cards that, first of all, they will never expect it, right? Like, it's just such a random thing to happen when you're playing these Glad Beasts. And it's a blowout card because they're like, banish Militia, summon Militia, summon Diva. And they go get Spine Gilman or some shit. And you're like, Icarus Attack, pop.
Yeah.
And now they're like, Aquily, now you have a Diva. Now you just have a Diva. And a Diva is a liability against Glad Beast. You know what's going to happen next.
Another weird thing about that first Glad Beast list, because I just looked at it again, and it doesn't, like you said, it plays, I think, more monsters than Glad Beast, more other monsters. And I think you take away one of the best things about Gladiator Beast, and that you said how they're a toolbox, and once they get going, they can adjust any situation. Like, this doesn't have Gladiator's Proving Ground, which is at 3. It's a card at 3 that searches whatever fucking monster you want, if you're running a true Glad Beast deck. And that gives the deck so much flexibility.
Yeah, it's that first list is interesting. The second one on this list, though, is more of a conventional list, I want to say, except Icarus Attack is a little wild. And then the next deck has 3 Icarus Attacks.
Yeah, I just looked. The next deck has 3 Icarus Attack. Like, holy crap.
And then the deck after that is a Prisma Glad Beast deck. So that's even more conventional, I want to say, because the whole Prisma Test Tiger combo. But then it has like, here's where I get like, it has double Sam Knight and Rescue Cat. I don't think you need to run 2 Sam Knight with Rescue Cat, because people maybe they don't realize, but Sam Knight is really bad. Like, you don't want to draw. He's awful. He's awful. And Rescue Cat can just get Test Tigers. Like, it doesn't have to get double Sam Knight or anything. Like, you can just get Sam Knight Test Tiger, and that can become Secutor, which can then become, oh, he doesn't play Secutor. Yeah, see, these lists are all over the place. I don't really like any of them. These lists are all...
Dude, the realization when you're like, he could do that. Oh, he doesn't play Secutor.
Yeah, there's a lot that I just do not agree with. And the more I look at these lists, the more I'm like, why? Like, why did you do this? So, Glad Beasts on the website, these are probably not the most reliable deck lists, but they're out there, and you can just take them. That's another thing. We kind of take these deck lists, and we just use them as skeletons anyway. Like,
yeah. And, like, a lot of these, like, to be fair to a lot of these deck lists, these aren't random deck lists that somebody just made on some website. These are deck lists that are topping tournaments. Like, this one that has triple Icarus Attack got 5th place at a tournament. I don't know what tournament. Edison Legends. Got 5th place. So, like, these people are placing in these tournaments, but I think that there's still room for growth.
Yes, for sure.
And maybe I'm wrong, which is very possible.
Yeah, I mean, we're just 2 guys doing a podcast. We don't know any fucking thing.
Sure, I do like Shrink. I like Shrink a lot.
I do like Shrink, and I completely forgot that Shrink is in a format. I think my issue with Shrink, though, is that 9 times out of 10, I want to say Book of Moon is just better.
I guess I like Shrink because it's like, it's like a Sakuretsu armor that does damage, and then your Gladiator Beast will, like, activate their effects and blah, blah,
yes. Blah. No, trust me, it's really cute in theory. But when somebody goes tribute for Caius, and you rather just be like,
yeah,
this Shrink, if it was Book of Moon, at least I could book the Caius and put him in a position where any Glad Beast beats over it. And, like, I don't know. It's chainable. So, like, if they go summon Caius target back row, like, sure, if you go Shrink it, they can't attack over your Glad Beast that turn. He's 1200.
Yeah.
But then they're just going to pass, right? And now you're dealing with a 2400 monster, so it takes 2 cards to clear it. And that comes up more often than you think because Caius is such a big part of the format.
Yep.
So some people get antsy. They don't always target your monster with Caius. They fucking target back row. So, especially if they have a read on you. If they're like, well, I don't think your back row is chainable.
Yeah.
I just don't think your back row is chainable. I think your back row is actually a D prison or a mirror force, which honestly, sometimes it is. Then they're like, target back row, and it's just going to be awkward. Every time that Shrink, it's just like, fuck, I wish this was Book of Moon. Because then you get punished. Then you get punished the fucking hardest.
Yeah.
And I think Book of Moon does more things in other matchups too. For example, Lightsworn. You go summon Lila, I have Shrink set. That's bad. If I have Book of Moon set, I go Book of Moon Layla, and you're fucked. You don't get the mill now. She's 200 defense, so literally anything can beat over her, including Secutor, which is game. So there's like a lot of reasons why. And the only reason I'm saying all this because I remember like the whole Shrink thing, and I know the guy he plays like Shrink and Book of Moon, but I think that Shrink could just be something else. Like I think it could just be another card. Is what I'm getting. Like Upstart Goblin, for example. I think it's just better than playing Shrink. I think Upstart Goblin was just like if I had to cut stuff, these 2 Ignition attacks are sus. The Dark Brobs are sus. The Shrinks are sus. So definitely 3 Upstart Goblins. You want those in there somewhere. I think everyone just needs to get on track with the Upstart Goblin thing. I don't want to see another couple years of people not realizing that card is just really good. You're playing bombs like Rescue Cat. You want to draw it every game if possible.
Upstart is just too good. I mean, you play 37 cards, right? There's a reason why every deck list is 40 cards, right? You can have 60 cards in your deck, but nobody does that. So Upstart Goblin makes your deck 37 cards, right? It's just...
Yeah. All right, so let's end that segment. We can start to wrap this up. I want to get into this monstrous listener letter that we have from Dan Glennon. So Dan Glennon wrote into us, and I'm going to only read part 1 of it because he has so many different topics because it's from all the different episodes that we've done. So he starts up by saying, "Hey, can you
want to break up and take apart over multiple episodes? I guess."
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay.
So he says, "Hey, Kenny and Fraser, found your pod after quite a few episodes, and I love the show. I do delivery, so I've been burning through the episodes while out on the road, and been making some notes on a bunch of topics I wanted to respond to. It's a lot, so I broke it up into chunks, and here we go. So the first one is relevant though. It's Yu-Gi-Oh plus TCGs. He goes, I'm also a long-time Yu-Gi-Oh player like yourself, and I too started in Pharaoh's Servant, and coincidentally enough traded a Toon World for a Genzo to my brother at the first local, front row, the first local I ever went to. So I also feel like a Yu-Gi-Oh historian, so while I don't play anymore, I love those stories. I switched primarily to Magic the Gathering in 2010 and played fairly consistently since then, but I dove into that game. Financial, lore, history, competitive play, card development, etc. It's interesting to see how different TCGs operate. Going back to Yu-Gi-Oh! After about 6 years of Magic, I saw new lines of play open up from my experience as a Magic player. You mentioned having a player come on and I would be able to translate things into Yu-Gi-Oh! Terms. I get into that a little below, actually. Skill in card games is simply minimizing the impact of variance. What's your take on this ideology? So, right off the bat, I love that little bit about, what's your take on the ideology of skill in card games is simply minimizing the impact of variance. I hate variance. I actually mentioned variance very briefly in this episode about the Raikou thing versus Raikou and then Upstart. Or Raikou and Foolish Burial, I think it was.
Yeah, yep.
I mentioned it slightly in the podcast, but it's such a core part of the way I think. Like, I think technical play, I'm pretty good at Yu-Gi-Oh! When it comes to technical play. Like, I'm really good at that. I think I make like pretty decent plays, which is probably why like I've been successful in Yu-Gi-Oh! Just because I know like the order of operations of things. I know when to not play cards. I know when people are just playing their cards. Like, you're just doing stuff because you can. You're just playing torrential because someone summoned. So like minimizing the impact of variance, I agree that a lot of it does come down to that. You could also rephrase that to say putting yourself every turn in the best position to win the game. Which is the same thing as like minimizing the variance. So like when you know your opponent's outs, like he could top deck JD here, right? Like, but if I put him below 1,000, it doesn't have the same impact clearly. Mm-hmm. So you start to play like that, and me and Kenny's testing on Dueling Book. That's what I was, playing backseat with his cousin. So I was seeing his cousin's hand and kind of telling him what to do. Kenny was playing Lightsworn. And I was saying, yeah, I don't mind you doing that because it'll put him below 1,000. Like a lot of my decision making was minimizing the impact of variance.
Yep.
And so you want to kind of like do that, and I naturally do it, but I kind of don't say it as much, but it's a natural part of who I am as a player.
I agree. I mean, I think that's just a fact, right? That's what card games are. It's funny, this topic came up yesterday on the stream. I was streaming Master Duel, and we were talking about a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, and then I drew like a pretty bricky hand, and the deck that I run is fairly consistent in getting its combo off. It plays whatever, it doesn't matter. But I drew a hand that didn't really do the combo, and then somebody in chat asked if I could he was like, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have mulligans. And I was like, no, Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't have mulligans, and honestly, I don't really think it needs it. Unlike Magic, where half your deck is land, like, mulligans make sense in Magic, and they make sense in Pokemon, because the way the game is designed and your decks are designed, mulligans kind of need to be a key part of that game in order, to make it more fair in terms of your decks. In Yu-Gi-Oh, though, you don't have like a land, mana, resource system. So I don't really think you need a mulligan. Part of what makes Yu-Gi-Oh deck building what it is and like the skill in it is minimizing variance, making your deck as consistent as possible. Like, You don't need mulligans. You need to make your deck better. And if your deck bricks 60% of the time, you don't have a good deck. You have to go back into the lab and fix it up.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. The other thing is, you mentioned Magic the Gathering, and I forgot about this, kinda, or at least I haven't mentioned it, but when before I went to YCS, I actually switched to playing Magic the Gathering because Yu-Gi-Oh was in a dark place. There was Frog FTK format in 2010. So right after Edison format, it gets bad. We go into X Sabers, Infernity, and Frog FTK comes out. And it's just not a fun time. So me and McKay, we would just play Frog FTK at the local, make everyone really upset. We win and so they would put 40 minutes on the clock, and me and McKay would be done in 36. Like, they would be 36 minutes on the clock when we're done because we were so ignorant. We would go, if we want to die roll, we kill you and turn one, and we do it quick. Like, special summon Swap Frog, normal summon Substill, tribute 20 times. Then after that, do the whole Ronin Tonin thing, turn them into Poison Draw Frogs, bounce Swap Frog to the hand, special summon Swap Frog, send a Ronin Tonin, send a Poison Draw Frog, draw a card, and here's the Mash Driver effect. 20 times, explain to your opponent what's happening. They realize they lose. Game 2, we literally would say, hey, you can side deck, but you also win game 2. I'm going first again.
I remember this. I remember when you used to do this. You used to be like, all right, I lose game 2. Okay, anyway, I go first game 3.
And people used to be so fucking shocked. And one guy actually cursed me out so bad. He was like 40 years old. His name was Fred. He was so angry when I did that to him. He got pissed. One day I did that to him, and he was like, I paid my fucking money to come here, and you're going to sit here and do this shit to me, and I don't even get to play a single turn. I was like, yeah, well, sucks to suck. And I just fucking did it again. And like, I opened the nuts. I think I opened like, I don't know. I just opened broken. I probably opened 1 for 1. And there's the one card FTK. That card by itself is an FTK. Like, no, like just 1 for 1 and one other card. That's game. So he was not too happy with that.
Imagine how degenerate. Just in case you guys didn't play in it, how degenerate is the format where you go, yeah, I lose game 2. That's fine. Anyway, game 3, I go first.
We would play so quickly. Me and McKay would be done our matches so fast. We would be racing each other to see who could turn their slip in first. And then after that, we'd have so much time left in a round that we'd start playing Magic. And we were getting our feet wet in Magic, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And it actually taught me some things that, like, just like the way you have to manage resources in Magic. It's such a slow game, right? It's all resource management anyway. So it taught me different kind of skills that I didn't really have mastered in Yu-Gi-Oh! And then when I came back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Late 2010, lo and behold, I ended up winning a YCS, which, like, the two things aren't 100% like related, like cause and effect. But there definitely is something to be said about honing a skill elsewhere.
Yep.
And they're kind of bringing it into, because they are both card games. You both have card advantage. You both have resources. So there are a lot of similarities. It's not like I'm saying I went and played football and then I came back and I won a YCS. Like, that's not what happened.
Yeah.
I played another TCG and it taught me things for Yu-Gi-Oh! And it made me a better Yu-Gi-Oh! Player. And then coincidentally, our deck was fucking broken for the event.
I have a similar story to that. As everybody knows, I play a lot of Melee. When I picked up Street Fighter 4, and I got really into Street Fighter 4, and I would enter tournaments for Street Fighter 4. When I went back to playing Melee, I was a better Melee player because I was so much more patient. And Street Fighter 4 is a slower game. It's a more patient game. Like, I was used to I can hold down back and, like, be cool. And so I played Falco and Melee, and I remember coming back and playing against Marth players, and they would be, like, on the ledge trying to bait me to the ledge to just kill me, and I would just stand on the other side of the screen and be like, no, I'm actually I can do this now. Like, whereas before, I like run in, I'm like, I gotta get him. But after playing Street Fighter 4, I'm like, I'll just stand over here. That's cool. Like, I'll just wait. Yeah. I'll just fucking shoot lasers in place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll literally take center stage.
Like, I'm good. I'll wait for you. So that's true. If you playing other things can teach you different skills. Like, I think two different fighting games going back can have skills that you weren't picking up from the other one. Same thing with card games, etc.
I recommend that people who play Yu-Gi-Oh! Play another card game. Just try it for a while. I don't mean like literally pick it up forever, but just play something else. You're going to be surprised at how you learn and you start to think differently by just adding another card game to your repertoire.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's very weird how the brain works, but you will start to look at situations that you get put in and it will make things seem different. And so there's another, rest in peace to Corey McDuffie. He was a phenomenal Magic the Gathering player, and also he won Yu-Gi-Oh! Nationals in 2014. I think he won Yu-Gi-Oh! Nationals in the United States. So he's a national champion, or he was a national champion, and he also won some big tournament in Magic the Gathering. So he was like good in multiple card games. Steven Silverman is another person. He played Versus system back in the day. I believe he won a big tournament Versus. And then he's also a 2-time YCS champion now. So it's not for nothing, but some of the people who just play multiple card games, they're just kind of broken because they just see things that other people who just played the one don't see. And I know sometimes it can seem like right now what I'm saying, it probably seems a lot like weird. There's like, how's that? Like, what do you mean? Like, what specific skills are you talking about? But I don't even know. I would have to really sit and think about it to put it fully into words. And this podcast is already nearing its end, but like,
it's not something that does something specific. It changes a gear in your brain. Like it's like how learning algebra and understanding algebra can just change the way you think in other aspects.
And problem solving. Algebra is literally problem solving. It's just how to solve this problem, right? You're solving for X. X is a problem.
Yep.
So you're literally problem solving. That's all you're doing. And it teaches you how to problem solve in other areas of your life that are not necessarily mathematical or algebraic.
Exactly. So that's the thing. Learning how to play Magic, what skills it specifically gives you and your brain for Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, I don't think that's something anybody could tell you, but it's something that a lot of people have experienced, where doing something else makes you better at doing the other thing that you like doing.
Yeah. So, yep, Dan, we are going to go over the next couple things in your listener letter in our later episodes. But thank you so much for sending this monstrous listener letter in. I do appreciate this type of thing because it gives us content. And you're one of the people who, the way you write, I actually really like it. It's very concise. You're straight to the point. Clear, concise thoughts. This is a go one. Like, I'm happy to be reading this.
Nice.
So because guys, I do have to, when I'm reading these live, right? Like I don't read them prior. I kind of like skim them, but there's sometimes like grammatical errors, punctuation, stuff like that. And it can be kind of tricky to read it. And it makes it sound funny when I'm reading it. So those listener letters, if they can be improved upon, just proofread your listener letters if you can. If you're running into IMNerdpodcast@gmail.com. We do appreciate the listener letters, but just look over them. Just give them one look over before you send them in sometimes, because sometimes they can be a little crazy.
I ain't proofreading shit. You get what I send. All right.
Well, if you send something that I literally don't understand what you're saying, that shit's not getting right on the show.
You getting what I send.
Now you're gonna get the real Fraser real quick. Right. Well, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We gave our Patreon shout outs. We went over Edison for him. I think that's everything. See, as I always say, do the things that make you happy. I'm ready to get some fucking food. That's what makes me happy.
So long, Gay Bowser.
So long.